That is Lake Lure at a distance, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. We're just going to have to cover this video with a prettier track. Too much noise around here. And this is so pretty, I'm just going to roll a minute of it.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe we can use it for a credit,
Okay.
you know? A credit bed, video bed.
Sounds good.
So I'm just going to let it roll for another 50 seconds. Not now. I get a wide shot.
One side is real short. This stuff is, and then I was just gonna. I got some liquid nails to put it to the wall. Yeah, and then I got some just white silicone to seal the edge.
When they're not recording that sign, that would be the or if there's another sign that
So that'll just cover that all up. What they do, they're gonna have it hid behind something.
pics.
Beautiful up here. Hey, old buddy.
Ready anytime you want to go?
Okay, great. Well, could you start just by briefly introducing yourself and kind of a little overview of your history with the park here?
I'm Mary Yeager Gale. I'm the general manager of Chimney Rock Management, LLC, and we have the unique opportunity to help North Carolina State Parks operate this Chimney Rock section of Chimney Rock State Park.
So how is, what's different about the park now that the state has acquired it since, compared to your time before when it was a private attraction?
Well, I mean, we have partners that they own, obviously, the property. I think we have the same mission. We are all very interested in protecting this incredible property. We are very involved in helping people understand and appreciate and learn about this property, and we also want people to have a great time here.
What's something specific that you do to help promote this mission?
Well, we operate the park on a daily basis, so we provide educational programming as well as the state parks and work with the state parks to do that. We also host weddings. We host groups from all over the world actually come to visit Chimney Rock. And we help market the park so that people understand and appreciate how special this place is.
Great. Well, and one of the things we've been hearing about is this marketing aspect, bringing in a lot of people, and obviously people love the park. Is there anything that you're doing to help kind of mitigate the possible impacts of having so many visitors at this place?
Well, Chimney Rock is very different in the fact that there are a lot of amenities that aren't usually found in the North Carolina State Park. We have an elevator inside the mountain to help people get to the top. We have an incredible stair system to help people hike out and see these incredible views of Hickory Nut Gorge and the rest of the area. That takes a lot of maintenance. So that's very different than some other state parks where you might just have a bridge or a walkway to try and get to things. There also are capacity issues here, and so we are very sensitive to the fact that we don't want so many people that it ruins the experience that people would have when they come. So it's a people management kind of situation that needs to be handled very delicately. We don't want to destroy the reason that people come here, the views, the outdoor experience, the hiking. So it's very important that we kind of manage the number of people and where they are and how they move around in here.
So in managing the people, what does that relationship look like with the state park? Like, how often do you make these decisions together?
We do work together. We work together. We present an operating plan so that we all understand how things are going to work, and then we basically operate that plan on a day-to-day basis.
Great. Well, and you mentioned the elevator. I mean, what does the elevator mean to this park? If there were so many problems with it, why not just shut it down?
Well, it is the way to access this mountain. The Morse family's mission here was to provide access for anybody of any kind of skill and ability, and they were able to do that by providing the elevator. And the state is dedicated to continuing to provide that access. So for people of, anybody of any age and any ability can access the incredible views of Chimney Rock, and that's something that we are all proud to be able to provide.
So again, in terms of the relationship between the private company and the state, are there any implications for other state parks or things that you think other parks could take from what you've learned here? Well,
I think the one thing that a private company working on state property can do is they can make things happen more quickly because they don't have to go through the bureaucracy that a state park does, and I think that helps on a day-to-day basis to operate a park that has all kinds of changing opportunities and changing challenges. Those kinds of things can be addressed more quickly.
Are there any challenges in particular that come to mind when you say that?
It doesn't seem like a challenge to me now because we've been doing this for a few years and we've been able to kind of work through the kinds of things that were awkward in the beginning. So I just think it's been a great partnership, and all of us, the state park folks and us as well, and the people that come to visit here love this place. And so it doesn't seem so much like a challenge. It's a great opportunity.
Great. Now, kind of looking to the future, are there any big plans in the making? I know we've seen a bit of the master plan, but what's looking to
and
the
that is the state parks project. The land and the property is the state's. Obviously, the park is growing. That's very exciting, not only for Chimney Rock State Park, but for our community and for the region as well. This is a very unique park in the fact that it has an attraction that's sitting right in the middle, a very unique and different kind of attraction sitting right in the middle of these beautiful lands. And so in that respect, this place is very different than other parks. It's been promoted as an attraction for over 100 years. So when they purchased Chimney Rock, they didn't only purchase a park, they purchased a community and everything that goes with that.
Yeah, can you go into a little bit more detail about what like, Chimney Rock Village or the local community means in terms of the park?
Well, I think it's a very symbiotic relationship. You know, the community depends on the park. It's an economic driver for this community. It's why people come down here, that in Lake Lure. And so in that respect, it's very important that we work very closely together. I think the state realizes, too, that the community helps them in the operation of their park as well. So it's very different. Again, it's not an isolated kind of case. It's something that we're all in together, and we appreciate it, and I think we nurture that relationship, and that's very important.
And can you, would you mind giving me an example of something that the park does here, or the LLC group does, to help bring visitors that might be different from other parks?
Well, we have a full marketing program, so you know, we have group salespeople, public relations people, marketing folks on our team that help go out and go to different association meetings to bring group tour operators and their clients down to the park. We actually work with the religious conference centers to bring people that come into the area. There's a lot of religious conference centers in this area of Western North Carolina. And when people come, we want them to have the opportunity. Chimney Rock offers the best of the mountains in one place. We have rivers, cliffs, waterfalls, the lake. I mean, it's a place where you can, so the flowers, the geology, the birds. It's a place where they can come and really experience this entire area in one very special place.
Great. Well, does anyone else have another question?
Courtney?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would you just very briefly tell Courtney about the
Okay. Are we good?
proper? Why don't you just ask a question, Courtney?
Oh, so, sorry. Yeah, so could you tell me a little bit more about the balance that goes on between you and the state, and even in terms of balancing the number of visitors coming and the environmental conservation?
Well, you know, I think one of the reasons that there's a fee here at this park, too, is if you just open the gates and let just anybody and everybody come in all at once, it would ruin the integrity of this very special place. So it's very important that we not only maintain the operation so that people can access the mountain, but that we don't have so many people here that it destroys the integrity of this place.
Now, and could you talk a little bit about the Race to the Rock that used to be?
Well, the Race to the Rock was very, it was very much contrary to what Chimney Rock is all about. It started in the 50s, and some sports car enthusiasts were out on a Sunday drive, and they came by, and they asked the manager, would you be okay if we rode up the mountain in our sports cars? And they said, sure. Well, that was the beginning of a very unique and very interesting and very well-loved event in Western North Carolina. It was called the Chimney Rock Hill Climb. And for 50 races, they actually rode wheel-to-wheel, or not wheel-to-wheel, solo one, which meant that they're not wheel-to-wheel. It's just against a clock, and they rode up the mountain. And it became a very well-known and very beloved event, but it was very contrary to what the mission of a natural park would be.
Is there anything else similar to that, or anything that has been discontinued because of its impact on the state?
Well, and I think it was discontinued because for a variety of reasons. I mean, we had to move our ticket office into the park because there was a lot of congestion on the road. The park was outgrowing that event. We have an annual Easter sunrise service here that is put on by the community in the park, a very special place for a very special time, and that's something that's been going on for over 50 years.
Great. Let me check my notes again really quick. Well, even if so, up in the balance between the state and the private company, could you define it in like one sentence?
Let's see, how could I define that? I think a private company can be more nimble in its operation in an ever-changing environment that we have. I think that that ability to be able to react and make changes quickly in the day-to-day operation is very important here.
Okay, great.
Does that answer, Tom, does that answer the question? How about the conservation piece? The state park, do we have a fee? Yeah, oh, I'm just, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know you're still filming,
You
okay.
keep talking.
You know, but that, you know, that's a very fair question. The fact is, because of the amenities that we have here, and because of the just the management of the number of people that come in here, it makes it very important that we're able to control that kind of thing and to be able to pay for it.
Great.
You're doing
Is that
fine.
good? Okay. Well, I don't have any more questions. If you have, do you want to come?
When you answer,
Okay, good.
cool. Hi.
Hi.
You're doing really great. Just quickly, I think I noticed when you answered about the elevator questions and the importance of that feature, you said it. So would you mind repeating your answer for that question?
Sure.
But say the elevator or something like that.
Okay. So the question was, what's the importance of the elevator?
Why don't you ask the question now,
Yeah.
and then she'll answer.
The question was like, what is the importance of the elevator? Why have an elevator? Why not shut it down?
Well, when we didn't have the stairs and the elevator wasn't operating, when we were putting these new amenities in, I realized when I ran around the corner, if we don't have an elevator or that set of stairs, there is no access to Chimney Rock. That is the way to get up there. And that, having the elevator is the only way that some people will be able to access Chimney Rock. And that was not only the Morse family's dream, but the state has realized that that access is so critically important to get everyone up top.
Yeah, I was wondering if you might speak about the park, the company's role or the private entity's role in kind of introducing nature to populations who might not, go to state parks normally or something like that.
We have always felt that education is very important here. This park is very unique. It has incredible geological formations. It has unique and very special botanical species here, rare and endangered. The birds, the animals that are here. It would be negligent on our part not to share that information with everyone that comes. And our guests tell us they want to know. And so we try and provide that educational opportunity in a very fun way, and people enjoy it. We love to tell children about this place. They are the future sustainers of properties like this, and they will grow up realizing how important it is.
Right. As a provider of broader access to kind of a broader population than might be able to access other state parks, can you talk about your role in sort of in introducing nature to folks who might not go to a state park but would come here for its unique features,
Right.
such as the elevator or the gift shop and stuff?
Right. Well, and we promote Chimney Rock as the best of the mountains in one place, and we try and help people from around the world understand exactly what that means. That it's not just about beautiful views, but it's about incredible geological formations, how the river formed this gorge, how different things the different things that happen here, why they're special, what they're about, and people have a passion for this, and they come to a place like this to learn about it. So we have a unique opportunity to be able to tell people, not just from our region, but from people all over the world, because of the fact that we're a tourist attraction and have been marketing this place for over 100 years.
Okay.
I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think we've got more. Ask their leader if we could take some pictures of the kids.
And see, this is what Emily tomorrow is very interested in having.
They go anytime.
Okay. All right, am I in a good place?
Yeah, we're going to a good place.
Okay. You were talking earlier about how early on there was maybe some awkwardness between the state and the private company. Can you talk about that awkwardness?
Well, I think it's kind of like a marriage. When you're first getting started, there's some things that you just don't realize how people operate, and I think it's, you know, we are a marketing organization focused on customer service and marketing, and state parks are police, and you know, we're trained to do things differently, and I think that what we've done over the year has learned from each other about how both of those responsibilities are important, but we've learned how to work together, and that has been a really great learning experience. It's been a very successful kind of opportunity to work together in a very, you know, it's different. Other people don't have private operators in the state parks. So for us to be able to work together with state parks as who are coming from a little bit different direction, a little bit different training as we are, and come together and appreciate how both of our responsibilities work together to do a great job of operating this place.
Is that?
Okay.
Should we
I
shoot?
think
Yeah.
their
Okay.
audio is coming in on her.
Yeah.
So.
Is the microphone okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Right. You're doing great. Still, thank you for putting up with us. I was wondering, so what are some of the downsides that you might find working with the state park?
You know, I think the greatest learning experience for all of us was that we were used to this. We were making all the decisions, and so what we had to do was realize that, you know, we are now partners in this, and that the decisions that we used to make are now decisions that we either don't make or that we make together. That's not a bad thing. It's just a learning experience.
Okay, so you're saying it's not really, there aren't any downsides to working with the park at all, or?
You know, it's just different. It's not bad. There's not a downside. It's just different. It's a different way of operating.
Okay. All right, great. So you'd say you work eye to eye, you see eye to eye on a couple of things, but not everything? Or?
I'd say we've grown together to understand and appreciate now how we have to operate the park.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a fair way to go. We really were coming from, you come from police and customer service and marketing. It's a different mindset. But I think once you get, you know, once we got together and started learning what each of us had to do, it became a very, you know, easy, and we've all learned how to work together.
Nice.
Okay. I think you got it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was
So
wonderful.
Okay,
Mike,
let me introduce you to Emily.
You can't tell me I am on pause. I am looking at spider program. Information formation, please. Rachel, I am on pause. I am looking at something. Oh, I just got you back. What? Oh man. I'm on pause. I'm looking at something. Rachel, you're in. Hey. Who's the first? Hey, don't forget me. Don't forget me. I was like this. Harley. Here. Here. Hey, grab like this to the camera. Who's it? Hey, so shit. Exactly. Let's go. Yes. They're doing Ring Around the Rosie. Your face can fear too much. She does not like moving targets. Hey, they're videotaping us, so you better do something. I think some of that. Come on. Look, what are you doing? You're it. You're it. Make it film. I got Esperanza.
So you need some lineberry and poison ivy.
Yes. Thank you, Zach.
Get my stuff set up there. All right. Now, what grade are we looking at today?
Third.
So, who's been to Chimney Rock before? Yes, I love to see that. You guys have been out here before. So, have you guys done programs here, or have you just walked around the trails?
Yeah. Rocked around.
So, is this your first program at Chimney Rock Park?
Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited you guys are here. My name is Miss Cat, and I'm going to be teaching under this tent, and I'm teaching about spiders. Who likes spiders? All right. Everyone is a spider lover? That is so exciting. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit, and then we're going to do an activity called Build a Spider. Have you guys ever done that before? No. Build a spider, and it's going to teach you a little bit about the spider body parts, okay? But first off, I want to know how you're going to stand by this side. If you are like, meh, spiders, they're okay. You know, I kind of like them, I kind of don't. You stand by this side. And if you're like, I do not like spiders, I want you to stand by this. Oh my goodness. Way to stick with your guns right there. You're like, all right. Okay, you're, okay, here, so hold that. Okay, who's my spiders? You. Oh, look at this. All right, here, you hold this one.
You hold that one, Zach.
You hold this one. And who are my, I don't like spiders. All right, let me take a look. Let's see what we have here. Wow. I think this group has more spider lovers than any group I've ever had. So can one of you guys tell me why you love spiders? Yes.
Because I like daddy long legs because they have long legs and they don't bite very hard.
Cool. We're going to talk about daddy long legs, okay? We'll talk about them a little bit.
Because they eat all the mosquitoes.
Yes. That's awesome. We'll talk about that too. Why do you love
They eat
spiders?
flies and fishes they won't guard of you.
Very good. And you?
I like their webs.
Yeah, they make really, really cool webs, right? Okay, and you?
There's some like bite you.
They do bite you. Do you think that is good or bad?
Bad.
It's bad, right? Okay. Well, you're right. Okay, why do you love spiders?
Because they have colorful color.
Because they're colorful.
With your registers, go ahead and hit them.
Slide that down the hill so get it on an angle like that.
Yeah.
If you want to slide that down, I'll let you do that.
That's good copy. Thank you.
10-4, they'll be shutting it off and back on. I'll let you know when we're done.
10-4, thank you.
That's a good one. Yep. We'll probably have to rip that knot off of it.
Yeah, get it set down in there good.
Because it's all right at about 8 inches, I believe, until you get to that knot. That's 8.5.
Alright, we'll mark that here and
That's 10, that's a little
chalk
high.
you a line through there.
Alright.
8.5.
Yeah, we can
And
live
mark
with
it.
8.5.
So you want to keep this edge?
Yeah, we'll cut from
All
here.
right. Show me about where 8.5 is. Got you. Okay. Got it.
Yep.
Looks
Good.
State Parks to Mike.
That's me.
Did you copy all that? 10 farm heading towards the penthouse right
Try
now.
to keep sort of straight line.
10 let me know who's up there when you get there. Oh, just elevators up here now.
Okay.
10-4, do not ride in the elevator, but go inside,
Yeah, maybe a little
push
out.
1 and come
Yeah.
back off and let it go down.
I'll help you though anyway. Yeah.
Sure.
Carson should be coming down now.
Huh?
10-4, copy, just hang out right there for me.
I'm like, huh?
And then filming inside the restaurant
Every time
at 11:30.
going.
It's all going to the lowest point of the trail, which is dead center. This time
Okay, cut.
I heard we had a complaint.
Ah! Cut.
honestly, whenever we find a good spot to do it, our last one is right here. Look for a good point where.
Okay, I'm gonna move.
I don't see you. If you don't move, Tom, I don't see you.
Yeah, but they might want to talk to me. Constructing.
Okay.
They're constructing. They're going to be building this next step. So that first, so they're.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Pretty much the top of one stair with the bottom of the next.
Yeah.
What we're looking for.
Go ahead and run it again.
Close. Right. Yeah, looks pretty good. It's gonna be some long sides.
Yeah, there'll be long ones on this one.
Go ahead and do one more trip so we watch it.
Be close. Might have to adjust.
Pretty good.
Done that a few times.
So this step being so close to the bank, we'll have to have pretty tall side.
Okay.
Maybe even double up.
Yeah.
Come on down.
And that's about 60, 65.
Okay.
And then
Yeah. May end up finding another one or two, to throw with it. Step hold it up.
No issues.
65, 50. Measure as we go what we're going to need for side timbers. I was just going to quarter it.
Okay. I'm just curious.
So this will take just a second to get this one like we need it. How long was it?
A few inches, and we can do that.
Yeah, that wouldn't hurt. Probably
Yeah.
be the way to go about it. Quarter this up real quick. Sooner or later.
that'd be good. So we'll tell you when.
Hey, anytime.
State Park Sky Lounge.
Okay.
Register or whatever. I'll call you again when the power goes off. Okay, we copy. Thank you very much. State Parks to Mike. Alright, on our way up.
Okay, good. We're done. We're done. Ah. Yeah.
People are watching you. Come on. Just watch that last step. It's sort of loose up there.
Oh, okay.
I mean, just don't step
Don't
on
step
it. It
on
may
it, right.
flop over with you.
She might step on it.
She'll want to stay and help you. It's all right.
Okay. Good deal.
It's like it's flat for an ironway, and what they would do is hook you in, so they're not going to have like boardwalks and bridges and stuff. It should be hooked in so they're not going anywhere. It'd be on a natural surface, but it'd be a narrow.
Pretty much on like a side of the pit.
Yeah.
But hooked in. Oh,
Hooked
wow.
in.
Right past it here.
It could be. They don't have any that. I think there's one in Virginia or West Virginia. This could be.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Right. You have to maintain the.
You have to maintain it.
But it would be like that.
You're going to be on TV.
Hello.
Hi, you guys. Hello.
Hello.
Everybody.
Hello.
On this beautiful day, huh?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Todd was very, very concerned about the fact that some of us had helped him run this park for, 25 years, and he wanted to make sure that we were all okay too. So it just was serendipitously that we were staying here,
Was that part of the deal when they bought it?
No, but it was so different. They had no idea what they were getting. Kind of bought like a pig in a poke. And when they got in here, they realized the trails don't fit our guidelines. The buildings aren't ADUs and things like that. And the state was like, because it's about egress too, it's about taking people out. So for me, coming from having been there for 25 years, we never really had any problems. We made it happen. So, that was where some of that kind of understanding how each group operated, because we've always been able to get them out. There's no problem. we always operated without a generator. Now they have a generator up there. The ramp. No, it's not operating the elevator today, but.
But the generator's for the elevator, right?
It is the hardest part. Now that we're kind of in it, we still have, there's some grade there because our
I'd
contract.
love if we could make sure that the stairs look like trees, with the bark and stuff on it. I'm assuming you've gotten that now. Okay. Would we be able to find a place that shows that really well?
Yeah, good sport. You have that up the whole time. It's easy to carry. Yeah. Not too weighty.
There.
Oh, since '97?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the previous time I was here, it was on a special Tar-Heel bus tour.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, 1999, I think.
Yeah.
We stayed at.
I remember you stayed at the Lake Orion and the Steep Canyon Rangers played. I was there. You remember them?
There was a dance.
Yeah, the Steep Canyon Rangers is a really popular band.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're now. They bring new professors, right? To give them an idea what drill is.
They did that back in about 2005, and then they lost funding for it.
See, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, well, with the new chancellor, there was kind of a campaign among the.
Well, I think programs. That's the sad part about some of these. Those are really valuable programs. I mean, these guys know about the state. Who's that come to school?
Yeah.
They should know about this.
So I knew about Chimney Rock from early on.
We were very excited that you guys came here too.
Did they come on several years or just over 1 year?
They came. I think the only year I remember was that year you guys came to here. But they probably went to like another year. They went to grandfather. Another year they went. So I was excited to do this.
Roll anytime.
Okay. You've said that it's really important. You said that this is a unique relationship between the LLC and the state park. So how is what we're seeing right here, the staircase, an example of that?
Well, I think this is an example. Our folks are helping are doing this particular project because it's a minor maintenance project. It's something that we do, and we're retuning. Can we start over?
So can you explain what we're seeing right here and how it's an example of a collaborative project between you and the park?
I can. This is a trail maintenance, and this is something that we do routinely. So our folks are out, trail guides are out on the trail every day. They're to share educational information as well as they're for safety and also to make sure that there are no things that need to be improved on the trail. So they're here, and this is a unique situation in that we are continuing to add improvements to this trail. If it's a major capital improvement, like say the elevator, that becomes a state project. If it's a day-to-day kind of routine maintenance or upgrading the trails, then that would be something that the LLC would do.
And would you say why this is being done?
There was a lot of washout on the Forest Stroll Trail, or the Four Seasons Trail. That's got to be changed because it's Four Seasons.
Anytime.
Yeah, tell us why this was done.
There was a lot of washout on the Four Seasons Trail. So our folks have been working all year here trying to add stairs, make it a little bit easier for our guests to access. Eventually this trail will be changed to where it will traverse the mountain a little bit differently and be even easier to access.
Okay, and why was this trail put in this way in the first place?
Well, I think it was put in because we needed a way for folks to walk. They wanted to walk more. I think that we feel like, and I think the state absolutely agrees, that it needs to be a little bit easier than this one. So as they get a new design in place, they'll change this trail out and make it traverse the mountain versus going straight up the mountain.
Okay. Yeah, why was it going, why did it go straight up the mountain?
That's the way they built it. I don't know why they did it.
When did they build this trail first?
They put this, I can't even remember. I think it's been like in the mid-90s they built this trail.
Okay.
To where?
How would a state park have built this differently?
The state would have definitely made it easier to access, going, traversing the mountain versus going straight up. They wouldn't add the stairs. They would make it more gentle and more on a natural surface.
Okay, and so you've it's my understanding that and put in the more contoured trail, but why is it important that this trail stay open in that?
Well, I think in the interim, it's important that our guests are still able to access the mountain in every way that they can. So this trail actually leads up to the Hickory Nut Falls Trail, and the Hickory Nut Falls Trail leads out to the bottom of the waterfall. So if people want some more hiking experience here, this is a great opportunity for them to get out and really stretch their legs, get some heavy breathing going, and get up to the top where they can hike out to Hickory Nut Falls. And then eventually, if they want to, this trail will actually lead them up to the chimney itself.
Can you talk a little bit about how it's strategic to have trails like this to kind of spread out your crowds?
You know, the trails, each trail here in the park offers something different. For instance, if you go on the Skyline Trail, when you get to the top at exclamation point, you're at 2,480 feet and you're looking at the full view of Hickory Nut Gorge. If you hike this Four Seasons Trail, you're kind of in the woods and you're able to, this is a great place to come for birding and a different focal point. If you go out to the Hickory Nut Falls Trail, you're able to walk through the hardwood forest and get to the bottom of the waterfall where you see all 404 feet of the drop. So each trail, and even the Great Woodland Adventure, which is a trail that we designed specifically for families with young children, has big animal sculptures. The storyboards are stories that tells, it's a little like notebook that our groundhog is actually telling a story about his friends in the park. It's good for kids of all ages, my age too, of course, but little kids really can appreciate the animals and the critters that live here.
So you have a lot of options for for all your visitors, and that's sort of strategic in a way. Can you explain?
Absolutely. Our guests have varied interests, as we all do, and so some trails are going to feature more of the geology. Some are going to have they're awesome for wildflower hikes. Others have, we can take them on to look for old growth forest. So the educational aspects that we are able to share, different trails have different focus. And that's how we're able to tell our story.
Okay, but you're attempting to offer those options in attempt to kind of spread out the visitor and lessen the impact on the.
Well, you know, when everybody comes to Chimney Rock, the first thing they want to do is go to the chimney. What we're trying to do is encourage them to kind of go to different things first, so that everybody that comes to Chimney Rock at 12 noon on Saturday isn't up on top of the chimney. So it's very important that we try and help them understand there's different ways to see the park, and if you all go in different directions, your experience will be better, so that you're not with everybody at the same time.
I think we got plenty here. I think we got more than enough. They're talking about being on the top of that mountain. So I'm not sure what their vantage point is.
Put us on the news or anything for wanted or anything like that, are you? Huh? So like that, there's some stairs.
Didn't recognize the bees that's going up there. But I never remember being shots up there.
You don't remember
And I
being
remember
shots?
shots up
Yeah,
there.
there's some up there. Pretty sure it is.
There's the sticks right over there.
Yeah.
Ain't it?
These.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long flight on there. Yeah. Long flight. Turn around until they can speak.
All right, 88 cents is your change.
I'm wondering.
Yes, sir. What can I get for you?
I need a fork.
A fork. They're in the dispensers by the window. Just press the red button at the bottom. Chicken salad pita. Okay, and what's your side item?
What's the side of the potato chips?
We have homemade Parmesan herb chips. Want to try those? And a lot of people like those with ranch dressing. Would you like some of that?
Please.
All right. Anything to drink?
Just a nice glass of water.
All right. Is that gonna be it? Your total is $16.47. I have a 20.
This is my better side.
Yeah, I'm not worried about getting it in the same frame. I'm worried about like having to the sun coming.
We used to have a Saturday show.
It's a brand new building last year, and there's a closed it since we're owned by the state.
There's like 4 or 5 paragraphs long. Like, oh, this is not.
So
Like, you tried to be nice about it, and then the messenger got back 10-4. Thanks. Okay.
I'm not sure. You're welcome.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We love the mountains. We love to come up here. This is our favorite spot. It's like the one-day trip.
Waiting for your car to come in?
No, I just want to pass through the frame, and they're doing that. That's fine. I know they're escaping, but here comes one across the frame. That's fine. There we go. All right.
But the kids just flipping love spiders. Oh my gosh.
How's that looking, Tom?
If we hold still, it looks pretty good. Lighting looks good. Of course, I have my polarized lenses on. Yeah, it looks a little out of focus, not quite sharp.
Oh,
Is that sharp there? That looks pretty sharp.
I hope so. I'm rolling.
There. And then I need to tilt down a little bit. Okay, wait, let's just hold. Everybody hold still. Everybody hold still.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Right.
Rolling, don't breathe.
Okay, is it rolling? REC in the upper left?
Yeah, it's rolling.
All right. You don't see me in the frame, do you?
No. Don't breathe.
He's wondering what's going on. He's being real still now. Now you can dance with him with the camera if you
I
feel
don't know
like
if he's
running
moving
camera.
or the wind's moving.
It's the wind blowing his web back and forth.
He's flying all over the place.
Yeah, that's his web. His web is.
I'm not sure the viewers will appreciate that.
That should be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's the spider on the flying trapeze.
Anything.
Showing some animals.
Okay.
And then I have several questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's great. Yeah, whatever you guys.
You guys think inside, or where the animals are?
Yeah, Grady and Louise the possum lives out back. She's sick, so I'm gonna leave her, not get her out and mess with her today. But I can bring them over here though. Whatever. Grady's super sleepy right now.
What are you set up for, Mikey? Are you set up for inside?
I'm set up for right.
And so that was the only thing. But you know, which was lucky. But Grady's been in captivity since he was really young, and you know, obviously we know that he's a healthy little guy. So it was funny though.
So at this point he's like an adult, right?
Yep, he is an adult groundhog. He wasn't quite a year old when we got him, so he was still fairly young. And we got him in November, so it's fattest part of the year. You know, these guys sleep all winter down here in the south, like November until early spring. And then they wake up and they're kind of nice and skinny, and then they get to eat all summer and all fall and get nice and fat, sleep it off, wake up skinny again. I tell my adult groups all the time, if we could figure out how that diet plan works and we could sell that, we could be millionaires. But, yeah, so, you know, he came to us in the fall, and he was pretty lethargic and kind of getting into a sleepy mode. So that when the next spring rolled around, we were surprised by how active Grady can actually be. But, you know, he's good. These guys are very smart, even with Grady's brain damage. He's pretty intelligent. So that's why they picked a groundhog. So for years there was the fictional Grady the groundhog, and so we started trying to find one that needed a home in 2005 when I started here. We were still private at that time. We started looking for a real Grady to see if we could get one to teach our programs with, and we finally found Grady in 2009. He came to live with us. So we flew him down from the Wildlife Center of Minnesota. And it's funny because all the local folks, our fire chief and all of our EMTs and stuff that respond in the park, of course it's a pretty small town, we all know each other, they keep telling me, Emily, why would you fly a groundhog down here from Minnesota? We have 50 of them over here at the firehouse you can come get. But like I was saying, we won't keep any critters that could...
And you're not looking at me.
Oh, yeah,
We're rolling. And you're interviewing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, look at her. I'm
Okay.
not here.
I'm looking at her.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm terrible about this. Every time the news people come to ask us something, I'm looking at them all the time.
You're good. All right, we'll start off with something easy. Can you just tell us your name and your position here?
Yes, my name is Emily Walker, and I'm the education manager and park naturalist. So we have a whole team of naturalists. Some are seasonal and a couple year-round, and so we all work on the same team.
Cool. So your job includes doing education. What do you tell kids that is special about the park?
Lots of things are special about the park. You know, most of our schools are within an hour to an hour and a half of this area, so we really want kids to be able to identify what makes where they live and have grown up special. So we talk about some of the rare plants and animals, a little bit about the park history too, how this was a family-owned place for such a long time, and the state came in and purchased the property, so it'll be here forever. And they'll get to bring their kids here and their grandkids here, which I think for the little guys that means a lot because sometimes they come with their parents and then they'll, you know, it makes sense to them that way. And then we talk a lot about the wildlife that lives here. You know, kids love the animal programs. For years and years we've done surveys when we were privately owned, and now that we're even state owned, we still send all the teachers surveys to find out what programs the kids like the best, and the animal programs are always the favorite. So we talk a lot about the critters that live in the forest and, you know, what roles they play here in the park.
Cool. So what are some of the parks? What is the park's role in appealing to younger audiences or those people who don't really who are not used to natural settings?
You know, I think that's one thing about this park that makes us unique. You know, this park is not the normal backcountry state park. People come here because they're looking for a different type of experience. And I tell all of our folks that start here every season, we get to make their experience. If they come here and they have a good time here, they'll likely go to another state park or go to the Blue Ridge Parkway or go to a national park. You know, this is a stepping stone, I think, in a lot of ways. It's either a park for people with young kids who don't want to go off in the middle of nowhere, which I understand. I have a young daughter. You know, this is the kind of place I would want to come hiking with her. Or maybe folks that are a little bit older that don't have the hiking ability that they used to, and of course they want the views, and most of the time the elevator makes that possible. So it's, I think, in a lot of ways, it's a park that offers the medium, you know, in between that backcountry experience, but obviously a lot more than what your neighborhood park has to offer. It's beautiful views, you're in the middle of the mountains, but, you know, you're not by yourself out in the middle of nowhere either, so.
Right. Okay, great. There was a bee that came by. I just want to make sure that didn't get in.
It probably flew through and didn't bother me. We're in nature.
Great. All right. So this is you work for the private entity, and so what are some goals of that company, and how does it accomplish them?
I think, you know, our number one goal, other than meeting the mission of the state system, which is, of course, you know, customer safety is always, or, you know, safety of our guests is always a big thing, but we are very customer service oriented. So we are about making sure that people have a good time and feel like they're in a safe, controlled environment when they're out here. You know, we get a lot of feedback from our guests that they want to see staff out on our trails. They want programs when they come to the park. They want to have an experience with somebody from our team, and so we base a lot of what we do on that and on the feedback from folks that come to visit us.
Okay. So what are the main environmental challenges facing parklands?
You know, I don't know that I can speak for the parklands throughout the gorge because I only work here at the attraction portion of the park. I think that some of the things that we see in the park, of course, are things like littering, which is an issue. And then, of course, erosion. And erosion's a big issue naturally anyway in this area. We have a very steep gorge here, but also a lot of people have cut their own trails on some of the park lands, and even trails that were put in here years ago maybe weren't maintained correctly or done the way the state would do them today. You know, the state has a very well-trained, well-versed trail building team, and a lot of what was done here wasn't done under those guidelines. So I think things like that, people utilizing trails that weren't done properly, can be an issue. Because we are admission based and we do have kind of, you know, we have staff on the ground at all times when we're open, we are able to kind of watch this portion of the park a little bit more than I'm sure some other parks that have lots and lots of lands and not as much staff. Then I'm sure you have illegal camping and things like that too. Poaching, I'm sure, is a problem. So we're lucky that we don't run into a lot of that here in this part of the park. And then other than that, I think defacing, you know, natural areas is probably something that we do see a little bit of, whether it's carving the trees, graffiti on the rock faces, which is always heart-wrenching when you come up and then all of a sudden somebody's name is, you know, 6 feet across one of the most beautiful rock faces in the park. But again, because we are floating around here and it's a pretty small environment, we usually can find that if it happens. So
So you have, can you first introduce who's here with you today?
sure, this is Grady, and Grady is one of our animal ambassadors here at the park. So we use these guys for educational programs. We see thousands of school kids, summer camps, homeschool families, and even church youth groups, things like that throughout the year. So Grady makes an appearance in a lot of those programs. And he lives with us because he has brain damage from a parasite, and we actually got him from the Wildlife Center of Minnesota. And so any of the mammals or birds that we use for programs can't live in the wild, and they either have something physically wrong or they were raised by people illegally. We do have animals that are what we call imprints, like our opossum that was kept as a pet and wasn't supposed to be, and now she can't survive in the wild. So Grady has a big job. He gets to entertain kids and teach them about groundhogs and woodland critters.
Right. So I've noticed that other state parks don't really have live animal programs. Why do you have live animal programs, and why would state parks not do that?
I don't know, to be honest, I don't know that I can speak on what their mission is and why they wouldn't have live animal programs. I think one thing is probably funding. Animals are expensive. Another thing is that, you know, a lot of these guys, you have to have the right kind of people to take care of them. So what if you only have a staff of 5 and only one of those people is the person who likes to take care of the animals, and then they leave? And then the rest of the staff is stuck with these critters that they don't have, you know, maybe the time, the expertise to take care of. I came from a nature center before I worked here, and so, you know, I was around animal programs a lot. That's what the nature center did, and I saw how much the kids loved it. When I started here, they had a small reptile collection. We've added a couple mammals, and now we do some birds of prey programs as well. But I think the reason we do it is because it's what people want. We have probably 20 times the numbers at our animal programs that we have at our other type of programs. So, and it's something for families. You know, to be honest, we're in a gorge on the side of mountains. It's very steep. There's not a lot of stuff that people want to bring their kids to do here, but if you can come and you can see an animal program and do our kids trail, the Great Woodland Adventure, it's, you know, which is based on animals too, it's something that kids love. So we're kind of reacting to what people are asking for, really.
Okay. Earlier you were talking about some of the environmental issues that the park,
Sure.
Private entity faces. How is the state park handling some of those issues, and how is the private entity handling them?
Well, I think one thing that is awesome now that we're state owned is that we have rangers. I mean, we have people who have law enforcement backgrounds. So when there is some sort of issue, whether it's a natural disaster, you know, like a road slide or a rock slide on the mountain, that sort of thing, you know, we have people with appropriate training to handle those kind of situations. We now have, you know, a very in-depth emergency response plan that I'm sure the private company had something like that, but not to the extent of what the state offers. So I think the safety in the park has gotten, of course, you know, much better, and we have people that are much more trained on the ground every day. And then, you know, as far as environmental impact as well, the state parks folks are constantly monitoring natural resources. So I mean that's one of the biggest parts of their job. They're out doing boundaries. They're out checking all these backcountry areas that nobody was on a lot of these properties for a long, long time, and so they're always monitoring what's going on. And I think that's the biggest thing is there's eyes, there's eyes and ears and feet on the ground now in portions of this gorge that hadn't been protected for a long, long time, and people had done kind of whatever they wanted in some of these areas up until the state took it, or purchased it.
I'm gonna stop for a second and.
Might be sweet potatoed out by this.
Yeah, that maybe so.
Oh, there we go. See, it's good.
Just one last question before I turn it over to my colleagues who might have questions, just brief questions that I might have forgotten. Is there anything that I forgot to ask, or anything you think you want to speak to?
No, I don't think so. I think that, working for the family and now working for the company that works with the state, I would say that, our educational programming is only getting better. We have awesome rangers here on site who want to teach. Of course, they don't have the resources that we have. They don't have the time that we have. They're getting pulled in a million different directions all the time. But I think the rangers offer awesome programs, hikes in other parts of the park that people don't usually visit, like the Rumbling Bald access. I mean, that's a big area for climbers, but not necessarily a big area for the same folks that would come visit here. And because of the folks that the state has on staff here now, they're starting to bring people over there and show them what this whole area has to offer. So I think there's a lot more to do than just what you see even just in the attraction portion of the park. There's opportunities throughout the state park now. Which, of course, that all being owned by the state is what makes that possible.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Joe Camille.
Yep.
What is the problem with erosion?
Well, I mean, a lot of different things. First of all, we are a very steep gorge, so water runs off the sides of these mountains. Obviously, when we get a downpour, especially in years like this, we've had so much rain, the ground is so saturated that the ground doesn't seem to hold the water.
I'm gonna ask you to start over and maybe say it in a complete sentence so I can cut myself out.
Okay,
Like
okay.
what erosion?
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have several different reasons for erosion here in the gorge. One is obviously natural. We have a lot of rain, and when we get the rain in this gorge, as steep as it is, the water runs down the sides of these mountains, and it can cause, landslides. That has probably been happening forever, before we were even here. But now there's humans involved. It causes an impact for not only tourism, but for local folks that are residents here. For the roads, obviously, we have just a couple roads in and out of this area. So when one of them washes out, it can be a big deal for school buses and tourism and people trying to get to work and everything. So, and that is out of our control. We can't do anything about the amount of rain we get in a season, obviously. The other thing with eroding areas is that a lot of people went wherever they wanted to go in many sections of this gorge for a long, long time because there wasn't any control over the land. And so we had people cutting their own trails where they were on too steep of a slope, and now those trails are eroding out. They're very deeply eroded, and that makes it a dangerous situation for people trying to use those for access. And even in the park where we had put trails in maybe 20 years ago that weren't cut properly, and now they're having to go back and redo those trails because of the slope that they were cut on and then all the foot traffic that they were given and they weren't put in the correct manner in the first place. So I would say that all those things definitely play a role in our erosion issues. And I think when you have this kind of geology too, I mean, we have all these huge rocks up here, and of course those mountains are always moving, and so we get some of these weather or natural disasters like we've had this year with the slide on the Hickory Nut Falls Trail and the slide on the road, that again are beyond our ability to control, but are because the mountains are constantly moving and weathering away.
Are there problems not just that affect people, but that affect the natural world?
Sure. The water quality is obviously going to be a concern. The sediment filling in our rivers, the rocky broad here that feeds Lake Lure. If you come down here on a day after we've had, a couple of days of pouring rain, it's red. The water looks very muddy. And you can even go up to the chimney and look down and see where it feeds into the lake. And the whole first part of the lake looks like it's a muddy lake, And that's all happening because of all the sediment that's washing off, the sides of these mountains and coming down. And of course, construction, people coming in and putting in neighborhoods, cliffside building and things like that. You start moving trees off the side of the mountain, and then all you have is loose dirt, and then it rains, and that loose dirt goes right down to the watershed, and it's just an ongoing cycle. So
now, why is dirt in the water bad?
Well, a lot of times too, the water quality can be affected. So, you know, we have species that depend on certain water quality, whether it be fish, salamanders, things like that. And when you start getting your rivers start filling in, there's less water, less clear water, less of what they need. Then that can affect all of them, their breeding habits, and things like that. So, you know, probably if the lake wasn't there and you know, it was still a river today and we had tons of cliffside building and no silt fences and everything was getting filled in, eventually the river, you know, would go away and it would become a creek, and then who knows after that. You know, luckily we have regulations in place and people watching things, and now especially with the state park being out here, there's a lot of folks looking at what's going on, so probably more protected than it could have been.
Does he need to take a rest?
Yeah, bring their families for free that day for Groundhog Day. And I think because where the sun was and where we were, it worked to see a shadow this year. So now we know how to rig the Groundhog Day. But Nibbles at WNC Nature Center in Asheville and Punxsutawney Phil were both incorrect. So we've had a little bit of a battle about that, which is fun.
You can bring that mic right within, close enough to him so he may recognize his brother. Yes.
She wants to, or we want to get just chewing. Probably.
Now you can bring that mic, just hold it right beside him.
Oh.
It was either that or.
Right beside him. Yeah, there you go. A little closer, a little closer, a little closer. Uh-huh. That's it. Okay, that's good.
That's so good.
Yeah, 1600. We got first shop closed at 8.
Ah.
That's it. I don't do it.
Nice Cave. Is that the same as Moonshine Cave?
Correct. Correct. Well, the name changed, but we haven't changed it on all the brochures yet.
Where's the still?
Where's the still? Well, somebody stole it.
We took it out.
Y'all take care.
Thanks. You too.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay, anytime. Okay, we got it. We're good.
Oh, she's scared. Man, somebody run up behind me and do something. Hey, how are you? Oh, yeah, we'll see. They got my film should be open tomorrow. That's the nice thing he said. He's the man that knows.
He's the one that's writing those letters that we were all thinking of.
Yeah.
That we were talking about.
Yeah.
But it all sounded impressive.
And he pointed it all out. He was the one that came over here and said ABC. That's the problem. So it's good to have him.
Okay. Walk on the left side so you don't hit me, and go ahead, go ahead.
Yes, if fire alarm goes off, fire service will be on, so you'll have to get the fire service key. Okay. So I can call him back. I'll call him back and let him know. All right, thanks. All right, bye. Okay. So they're not going to turn it off now. So that's
They're
good.
not?
Yeah. You're freaking me out, man.
I do try to tell them stop.
It was doing good.
Forget that.
Yeah. Okay.
We're rolling anytime.
All right. So I'm really interested in the relationship between the state and the private company, and we've asked you both about your respective roles and how you work together. Now that we have you both together, it's a great time for you to kind of bounce off each other and talk about that relationship between these two parties. I'm gonna just start by asking you, like we've both asked you about the Four Seasons Trail. How has that relationship played out in how the trail was built before, and how maybe closed and a different trail been built, but instead it's remained open, and the structuring work has been done to reinforce the structure. So I'm going to actually start with you, James, to speak about the relationship and how that has played into how you've managed that trail.
Okay.
The Four Seasons
Yeah,
Trail.
the Four Seasons Trail.
Right.
Okay.
That's really mouthful.
Yeah, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, do you want the history first? Because the history might be better with her first than me pull in, or do you want me to just come in?
Does that make sense to do the history first?
Either way,
Yeah,
it's just, we could talk about it. This is a trail that gives folks access from the meadows to the top. So if they want to walk, they've got a great place to walk. We looked at it, and I think we wanted to get something done. I think there's a better way to do it. And certainly the state has guidelines for how they do their trails. And when they came in and they said, there's a better way to do it. So rather than to close that trail, we're improving the way it is today, with the understanding that eventually it will be changed and meet the state park guidelines.
Right, and when we got the park in 2007, trails were a pretty big deal. I mean, we've got some of the best trails here in the state, and obviously with a private concessionaire owning it before, we got different standards than they have. So when the state came in, what we do is we look at what we've got. With the trails, that involves annual trail inspections, and we go in and bring in our trail specialists, and we walk the trails and we look at what we've got, and then we try to decide, okay, is there a better way to do this, and gauge things on our standards, how we build our other trails. This park's really unique because it's got trails that go at places we probably wouldn't normally build trails with state parks. So it provides a really unique opportunity to get people to areas that we've never gotten people to before. With the Four Seasons Trail, for us, it's probably one of the easier ones to work on because it has less structure on it than a lot of your other trails. With that said, we can build things to our standards on the ground. The less structure you have, and the more with the terrain that you build, the contour lines, the less work you have to do in the future, and it also helps protect the resource, and it creates an enjoyable walk. So, phase one of inspecting the trail is maybe looking at the structures. Do some of these structures need to be here? Are they working? Looking at the layout of the trail. Is this trail laid out in a good location, or is water running in this area and washing this trail away? Are we having natural resource damage? So with that being said, we can realign the trail in certain spots and say, hey, if we move the trail over this way just a little bit, we can help prevent this resource damage. It may make it a little bit easier hike. Yes, the trail may be a little bit longer, but we're protecting the resource, which we're trying to get people out here to look at.
Can you say in a concise way what was happening, or how the Four Seasons Trail was built, and what state it's in now?
Okay, typically when people hike in the woods, you're trying to get to A to B, the quickest path you can, and usually that's a straight line. If you're building a trail, that's usually not the best way, especially if you're in terrain like this. It's just too steep. So some sections of the trail were very steep and seemed to be all right, and structures were put in. Now, you can build on steep trails, but you have to provide a lot of structure. Now, if you don't provide the structure correctly, it can deteriorate, or it may not be doing its job, which causes the trail to wash away. So that's kind of what we had in some of the sections here.
And you saw some of that today when we were out there hiking, that it's a pretty straight shot up. It would be far more easy to maneuver if it traversed the mountain versus going straight up. So the stairs, right now we have the Ultimate Stairmaster out there, I think that in the future we'll have a way where people can kind of take their time and kind of meander up the mountain versus going straight up.
Right, in some areas you can't get away from it. I mean, it's obvious you're going to get to some area, and even our trails guys will get there and say, wow, I can't get up there unless I start to climb something. That's when we look at structure. But then when you look at structure, you're talking about engineering, and you have to pull in a whole other team. Then it changes from trail maintenance or trail building to almost engineering or just maintenance in general.
And I think, you know, the access to this mountain is just so incredibly important because there are some things that you can't enjoy unless we provide some very different access.
Oh, definitely.
And that goes from either it be stairs or bridges or even as far, you know, as extreme as the elevator or these big staircases that the state just put in. So it's in order to access this mountain versus other places, that is kind of the only options you have.
How did that decision get made on Four Seasons Trail? Like how is the interplay between the state and the private company?
Well, the trail was there
Yeah.
to begin with. And so we're
Yeah.
basically just trying to tweak it, right?
Yeah, so my guess is probably originally when the trail was put in, or probably even before that, when the elevator was put in, my guess is a lot of people came here. And people continued to park here, and the concessionaire realized that, hey, we don't have enough parking. So to alleviate that, they said, hey, let's have parking down at the meadows. We have a whole field down there, and we can put a lot of people, and that worked good. Now the next issue was, how do you get people from the meadows to the chimney? Well, busing it is an easy route, but they're about hiking too, the natural resource. So hey, what better idea than make a trail that connects the meadows to the chimney? And that way you could kind of get a longer fill. You know, you wouldn't have to, for those who wanted to drive straight up the chimney, you can drive up there, ride straight up the elevator, and be there with little effort. But for those who want a little bit more effort, more adventure, they could park at the meadows and hike all the way up to the chimney, and even higher up to Exclamation Point if they wanted to.
And that trail really is a relatively new trail because I think more and more people are more interested in being outside. They're more interested in outdoor activities and more interested in health and, you know, just being more fit. And so I think that for a variety of reasons, it made sense to put that trail in. If there wasn't a trail, they were walking the road, and that is not safe. And so we were not interested in that. We want to make sure that people got to the top if they wanted to hike, but they got there in a safe way so that they could enjoy the mountain and not be in the traffic.
Not to belabor, but I understand the history of the trail, but the decision to, you know, when the state came in, to put the structure in.
Oh, the structure, okay. With the structure section, let's see here.
How did that decision get
Okay.
made?
Once we walk, let me start over, let me think here.
And they saw some of it where it was
Right.
really eroding.
Basically, it's a time issue
Yeah.
also, and people.
Yeah.
All right, well, we can go out and look at trails and do trail inspections, but just because we do that inspection doesn't necessarily mean we have the time, money, or resources to complete that. So, you know, usually that's phase one, is trying to figure out what we need to do with the property. Then we need to look at the resources we have, whether we've got resources in house that could be staff, also funding. Can our budgets handle it? Can the state budget, you know, the state parks budget first off, but also there's budgets for division, the state division, and there's capital improvement projects we can pull in and trails projects specifically for things like that. So it's kind of a phased approach. After you have the plan, look for the manpower. Okay, we may have the manpower, but do we have the funding to complete this or the time? There are sometimes time constraints when you're working with a concessionaire in state parks because you've got people coming to the park. You may have other areas of the park closed due to whatever reason, and you want maybe this trail improved pretty quickly, say before leaf season gets here, so people can enjoy it. So that's where it comes in. Do we repair what we have? You know, if there's erosion in this one area, do we put in structure for a temporary fix now with a thought in the future when we get funding and time and resources, we're going to reroute this section and bring it around the side to where it needs to be. Not to say that the structure is wrong or bad, but at this point in time, that's all we can do, and it's stopped the resource damage, which is number one, and number two, it's created a great, enjoyable trail. Yes, it's still not exactly what we want, but for the time being, that's what we have, and that's what we can deal with until we can get money and resources.
Why isn't it exactly what you want?
Because it doesn't follow the contour. When state park standards, and that's where your standards come in. For some people, you may think, hey, a trail's fine with structure, but for us, state parks are about protecting the natural resource, and also, trail design. You want to hike a trail and not even know that you walked across something that doesn't belong there. and that would be structure. Now, if you build trails with rocks and stone steps along contours, it flows easier. Whereas if you're walking through a trail and you've got, a huge boardwalk you've got to cross, or, 491 steps to get somewhere, it's going to be rough. And it may not be as enjoyable because we want you to enjoy nature, not the structure.
So I'm going to shift a little bit.
Okay.
So the elevator.
He's got a big smile. So the elevator.
So, about the elevator.
Mary, you've been here for 30 years.
32 years.
32
yeah.
years. I don't know, to talk about the history of the elevator, I guess, to start.
Well, the elevator, I think back in the 20s, actually, the Morse family realized that in order to access this mountain, for everybody to access this mountain, they needed some kind of support, some kind of help. And so it was in their conversations in old letters that we've seen that they were talking about how can we make that happen. And so an elevator inside the mountain was the thing that made the most sense. It wasn't easy. We're not in mining country. We're not in a place where that happens routinely, and certainly not in 1947 and 48 when they were building it. So for them to put that in was an engineering marvel at the time. The elevator was completed in 1948. It actually went into operation in May of 1949. So, but what it did do was provide that access that the Morse family was very interested in providing, and that the state, fortunately, is interested in continuing, so that everybody that comes to Chimney Rock will be able to access Chimney Rock Mountain.
Now, when the state bought this attraction, what was the thinking? Why did the state choose to buy the attraction?
Well, look at it. I mean, the resources there. I mean, Chimney Rock is quite unique. I mean, if you look at the Olive Hickory Nut Gorge, we're right on the edge of the Blue Ridge Escarpment, which means you've got your plains that come up against the Blue Ridge Mountains. And so this is basically where the mountains start. We're at the edge of it. And because we are at the edge of it, and because the river that runs through here, you do have a pretty dramatic elevation change. Almost 4,000 feet at the highest point in the park to about 1,000 feet down here at Lake Lure. And between those sections, you have these beautiful rock formations. I mean, that's the key. I think people come out here is to see the geology and to see what the gorge and Mother Nature has done to actually break these rocks away from the side of the mountain and create something as unique as the chimney. I mean, when you get here, it's a pretty, wow, there's the chimney. Everybody knows it's the chimney. It's very iconic, for the state. So yes, it's a good iconic thing for the state to have, and it needs to be protected because when everybody, comes in the state, they see these billboards all over the place, welcome to Chimney Rock. They see that and they say, hey, let's go there. You don't have to tell them to go there. They see the picture, they see the flag, the chimney, and they say, that's where I want to go. And then we want to provide that access. And really the only way to continue doing that is with a concessionaire here.
What was the thinking of the state? I don't know if you can speak to this.
Talk to Louis. He's probably the one that's, yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
So maybe you don't have that. Like I'm curious about what the state was thinking about the elevator. It's a major cost and maybe a major liability.
Well, I'm sure when the state purchased it, when they did purchase it, they looked at everything in here. They looked at every single building, all the elevators, the trails, and basically evaluated the whole area. And the bottom line, it came down to what are we protecting here? What is here and what are we trying to protect? The resources, what we're protecting. Everything else that came along with it was actually a bonus. There were buildings already in place here that we could use facility-wise. Yes, most state parks don't have an elevator, but that's also a unique draw, and it gives people a different look at a state park, whether it's inside of a mountain to the top of Chimney Rock. I mean, a lot of these places you can't get to in other parks. I mean, when you take the elevator up, you're about mid-level of a cliff. I don't know anywhere else you can get to the mid-level of a cliff without rock climbing.
Great. Well, I'm gonna let some of.
Oh, okay. Well, when we've been.
Yeah. How much of us are we like?
Yeah,
where's our arms?
This, so I was like,
oh, okay.
That's probably a little.
You don't see them. Okay. I was gonna say where are our arms?
So as we've been meeting with both of you, we've been hearing this idea that acquiring this property, purchasing this park, you're not just getting the land, you're getting this community. And so how does that relationship, the community and the park, kind of tie into the decisions that you make here?
How does the community?
Well, the community totally depends on this park. I mean, we are the economic engine here at Chimney Rock to help our community. I mean, Lake Lure certainly is a draw, but for years the draw here for people to come to this community is for the park itself. So the community and the park are very, as I mentioned, very symbiotic. I mean, we rely on one another. The people in the community, when they get down there, they ask, is it worth it to go in there? And the community folks, of course, would say, absolutely. You can't come down here and not go up and see Chimney Rock. And it works both ways. I mean, people come down, they come to see the park, but then when they're here, they see the village, they're able to visit the lake, they're able to stay. They find a place where they can come and stay. And it's a pretty special vacation spot.
Well, and that's key to every park. Any park across the state, tourism, that's what parks are about, getting people into the resource to enjoy the resource. And with that being said, the state can't offer everything to people. I mean, we do the best we can, but there's some things that we don't. We don't do restaurants and things, although we do to get help here with the concessionaire. So when people come into the park, it's very nice to have private businesses out here who are offering other services, whether it be ice cream shops or somewhere to eat, to a outdoor outfitter, to a fly fishing shop. So it brings other people in to help provide other types of recreation to not only the resources in the park, but the surrounding resources.
So this relationship, I mean, it seems to work for you between the private company and the state park, and that's very new and really unique. What do you think other parks could learn from what you guys are doing here?
Well, I think this relationship is very difficult, but I think it takes a little bit of both state parks and for private organizations to realize that there are other ways to do things, and that the state has its standards that we have to stay by, but also those standards do limit us. They're there to protect taxpayers and everybody else, but in that same token, there are private companies that can help do things that the state might not be able to do. So things that are beyond our capability or resources, if there's a way for another organization to assist us in our goals and objectives, it's just logical to seek them out.
So do you think this is something that could be applicable to other parks, or do you think it's sort of tied into its history of tourism here? Like, is it something that's just going to be good here?
Well, I think it could be applicable to other parks. Not all parks. By far, not every park can follow this model. And in reality, a lot of people think parks should be free. I pay my taxes, I want to get out of the park. But also, if you want services, a lot of people expect to pay for services. So there's a fine balance between there. So you'd have to look at each park on each individual level and determine what's that park's purpose. Is it total protection of a resource, or is it more recreational based? And if it is more recreational based and it still protects the resource, is there an opportunity that possibly a concessionaire or someone else could do it a little bit better than state? But again, it would require a lot of mutually agreeable terms and ideas to get that done, and that's where the difficult part comes in.
I think for us too, communication is so critical. I mean, we are coming from two different directions. We're learning how we work, each of us in our own businesses and our responsibilities, and so I think that's probably been the most challenging thing for us. And James is right. We had a way of operating, and they have a way of operating, and so what we've had to do over the time that we've had together is understand each other's operation and try and see how we can help one another. And, it's not bad, it's just different. Yeah. It's just a different way of operating. Yeah. But I think that we have been able to, through a lot of, trial and error, we've been able to figure out how to do it, and it seems to work.
Right.
Do you have a specific example of something that you may have had conflicting ideas on, but you came to some sort of compromise, or?
Oh, goodness.
Well, I think, maintenance, both teams do maintenance.
Yeah.
So what we've had to do is decide, you mentioned the Four Seasons Trail, but how does one group do, what does one group do versus the other? How do we work together? When is it totally a state park project versus when is it something that the management company could do and should do? And I think we've had to kind of work through that gray area that we weren't clear about.
Right. I think overlapping duties is the key there.
Mm-hmm.
We do have maintenance people here at Chimney Rock that work for the state, but so does Chimney Rock Management. They work side by side, so it's a little bit difficult, and they're used to the way they do it, but we're again held to state standards, state construction standards. So again, it's our maintenance guys trying to let them know this is what the state expects. Same for interpretation education. Mm-hmm. We're both working on the same goal there, and Chimney Rock Management does an excellent job with that. So excellent that we don't have enough staff, or I don't think I could get enough staff to match what they're doing with education. So again, we're playing on each other's strengths. We may have a strong maintenance strength where we can advise on certain things like that, but in the same token, they have strong education strengths that we could use to help promote our goals and objectives.
And we feel it's our responsibility, I know State Parks does too, to educate the future generations so that they appreciate and continue to care about and help us sustain these incredible properties. That's very important.
Okay, so again, going back to this relationship, we know that we've been talking about how the contract will be renewed or is up next year. So maybe James, if you could go first, but kind of how are each of you preparing for this next year? Or what are you seeing in the future with your future relationship a little bit?
Wow, I don't know how
to I don't know if that's something we really want to get into.
Yeah, I don't think we want to get into that.
Probably, that's
all
probably
I can say
not
is
so.
we're preparing the new contract.
Yeah.
And that would be something that way we
figure
out what's going on, and again, that's all new for us as well. So we're also trying to figure that out. We've got a lot of people in Raleigh working on that and helping with that.
Is that a certain time period, like every 5 years or something?
It depends. It can be written into the contract.
Yeah.
It varies.
See, ours is this operating plan that we have is kind of the only one like it in the state, where there's a private group helping to actually operate a park. They might have concessions. That's different than actually the day-to-day operation.
Yeah, some state parks have contracts that are like Jordan Lake, for example, has marinas. Those marinas are contracted out to a private individual to run the marina. The state doesn't run the marina. The difference is they're in charge of the marina and all the infrastructure and things like that.
Me? Sorry.
I
was just
One final question.
Be happy.
Sorry, I didn't realize. I was just thinking, am I in there with them too? I'm looking like, yeah, don't put that in there. I'm looking like, oh my God.
And no, you can address this as to James.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were looking at me too. It's a happy time. Well, I can address that some. I think that our goal too is to help people become aware of this spectacular resource. And there are a lot of things that we do here. Education is one that people have told us. We do a lot of research when we operate the park. Our guests are going to tell us what they would like to see happen. And what they would like to see happen is very consistent with what State Parks wants to see happen. They want to learn about the birds, the wildflowers, those kinds of aspects of the park that are so beautiful. And so that's just an expense for us, because it just, it's something we feel like we need to provide, and that because our guests want it, yes, they do come to the park for that, but there are a lot of costs involved in making that happen. So even I think people will sit outside and think, okay, man, they're making $12 a piece and they're making all this money, but they don't appreciate the fact there's a lot of expenses that need to be paid in order to make it happen.
Right, and with a business, I mean, it's different if you're running a business or you work for the state. The state's funded by, all the tax dollars, but a private business is run and funded by the business. So they have to have a business plan that is going to support them, because the state's not going to support them, so they're going to have to support themselves. And whether that involves, hiring staff or having events or charging admission to get into a place to provide all the services that the state can't provide. We don't run buses at most parks. We don't have restaurants at most parks. We don't have live animals at most parks. So that is something that the public needs and wants if you want to continue to provide access. And yes, so to make money at a concessionaire, you're going to have people come. And they're going to come for the resource, but when they come and you run out of room, you're going to continue to provide for those people to come. You don't want to turn people away. So yeah, that may mean adding more parking here or there, or even varying the rate based on whatever's available in the park at the time.
Yeah, I think that you also, one of the things that's very much a part of our job is just managing the people flow. And so sometimes in order to accommodate the people that come versus ruining the fabulous resource we have to create other kinds of activities so that we can move them around and help them not be all of them in one place at the same time. So that's very important. Again, it's the revenue that we generate by admissions is how we are able to operate. And as James mentioned, there isn't like a state budget to go back to and say, okay, we need a little bit more money. This is what we operate on. And as we had this summer, an incredibly wet summer, that impacts the bottom line. That's, can't have that happen every year, or people wouldn't be in business. Or elevators that don't work sometimes.
But also with the access, most state parks, we limit access a lot of times due to what the facility or the resource can handle. So there's an infrastructure here, infrastructure in place at state parks that determines how many people can come to that area. Everyone needs to go to the restroom. Everyone needs water, so we need a place to park, but we also need ways to deal with all those issues that come in here. So that's a limiting factor to a lot of parks and how much parking they have or how much people they let in there. Whereas here, that was done before the state got here, so they handled a lot of those issues. And currently, we're still working on some of those issues because they're pretty difficult issues due to the environment. You build a house on the side of a cliff, you're going to have multiple issues that come associated with that and all the infrastructure involved.
Thank you. Anyone else?
And I don't know that we answered your question, but the only way we are able to survive as a private company is to charge admission.
I'm not paying, the taxpayer's paying it, so what do you do? I love it.
Didn't they redo that
It's okay. They're with UNC TV and they're actually out here filming some stuff, so he's probably not even going to hear anything I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Or you're saying he's just probably trying to get a shot of me talking to somebody in the public. So
Didn't they recently redo that elevator though, like
they did.
4 years or so?
Yeah, they actually it was just about a year ago.
About a year
I mean,
ago,
the project was totally completed and we had it for a year
Yeah.
open, so maybe it was more like 2 now that I think
I
about it.
thought it was about 2 years. or
They
so.
completed it and it ran pretty good for that first year, but then in the summer we started hitting some failures, and basically because of the heat and all the the use of it. I mean, people ride up and down all day. At the power, we found out was the issue, so it was actually shutting down because we're running the Sky Lounge up there too. So the elevator's being run, one power line going up running a building, the elevator, and a deli basically. So
the elevator just shut down along the way, or?
well, then what it do is overload kind of.
Oh yeah.
I don't have enough power, and we shut down. Okay? And what we did here is actually put in another power line. So we got 2 lines. The elevator's on a total line by itself now, so we shouldn't have.
So no more problems.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Did a lot of work on this. I remember my parents are from the area.
Yeah.
And I remember when this was privately owned, and they had
Yeah.
a trail that went over to the waterfalls.
Yeah, and we
over
hope
there.
to get that open too again someday.
I hope you do, because that's a beautiful trail up
Well, it's
there.
in the master plan. It probably won't be along the same alignment, but it's similar. We hope to get people back to some of these beautiful overlooks.
Oh yeah, especially the waterfalls.
But there it is. I don't know.
You see a 75-mile view,
And that's how
and
far
you're
it is?
seeing it, yeah.
And
I mean, as the crow flies.
That's kind of north of Charlotte?
It's west of Charlotte, so you pass through Kings Mountain
Yeah.
before you get into like Gastonia.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you see Charlotte from up above?
Uh-uh.
No, cannot.
That's pretty much as far out as you can see, or what we can discern. You guys have absolutely picked such a beautiful day. I mean, you can come and it's
right here. Let me get the levels right here. Just give me one chord. One chord. That's good. Whatever you like. Something a little upbeat. Something a little upbeat, all right. Happy. Okay.
What
About
about,
90 seconds worth. That's all I need.
Carolina in the morning.
Okay. Okay.
a more local song. We'll call that done.
Good.
Oh, it's too late, door's closed. You can push it open. Well, I can give you a message. Give you a message. I just need a signature from them.
Isn't that a bad idea if all the elevator guys are in the elevator?
Yes.
I'm just joking.
It is.
You want to cut
Yeah,
it
don't
off?
joke.
And
It's
they're all
true.
in
It
the
is.
elevator.
It is. I can open it.
You'd have to
I'll get it.
fly in another elevator.
And when they first came, it was funny because they did say, one of them said, "I'll wait out here." And we do that too. So, you know, if I'm the only one on duty, a lot of times
Guys, I came home from vacation, peeked in here.
I'll.
Okay, here we go.
Did you see the stuff at the end? That really freaked me out.
Is it still like that?
Well, yeah, we're into the wall up there. But it has to be encased.
Yeah. It has to be encased?
Yeah, the pipe does, any of that electrical stuff, 4-inch pipe, so it has to be encased. But the hope is, like, I don't know if it's really good right now, but eventually, if we get money, I'd like to make it like that, so then on the side.
But that doesn't.
No. Yes, no, there is. They've been rubbing this cement all day long.
Yeah.
But I like to put up a wall to cover this down.
Go ahead, push forward. Yeah. Anytime. As soon as it opens, go ahead.
There we go, you ready?
Okay.
Floor, and then we just put this chase in it and closed it. So 4-inch rigid with 3 500s in it, so it should be good to go. We hope.
We hope, yeah, there we go,
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right, guys. You said it was my back. Okay, thank you. All right, you ready? There we go.
Hey, guys. It looks good.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Okay, there ought to be a steady pressure.
can ask.
2.5 would be good.
Okay. And do we want to put 2 week in there? We just want to say the word of the
2 weeks
contract.
fine or whatever. We could do probably.
Oh, I think this crowd may be out of national.
Install larger. Install second. Same size as the other one, but it's another one.
Second one, okay. Gauge power lines. To install second.
And replace electronic panels. I'll probably just do the second. It's a feeder
Power
line.
source or feeder line.
But I don't know if the public may not get that. We may not even want to put that, say what they did.
Okay.
We just say it was electrical repair.
We could put this, we could put the contract back. Well, no, so they could move it, period. And so then the contractor said, so who's going to try this? And the guy that put it in said, well, I will.
Try the zip line.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're about to get it.
She's talking on phone.
We can give him a shot.
Thank you, James. I'll wait to hear from you.
Yeah, I'll be back.
Okay.
So I'd like if Mary could stay right here, and then we'll get our camera person, our Mikey. Just be shooting you. So Mikey.
Well, will it? Is it a voice thing? Or
No,
he'll do it? Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Can you send my guy over?
Are we up? The camera up?
We're ready. Yeah, for my adopting.
You look good.
As close as you can. Wait, you can stand right here. Put your head right in here. Yeah, that's close to the camera body. There you go. Just off from the camera body. Yep, that's getting a good angle on Mary. Okay.
These close-up, I mean, I've had my face in a camera for a long time, but these are very cool.
Yeah.
But it looks good. It looks good. Okay, so rolling any time.
Okay. So Mary, what did we just do? What was the what is this where we're at?
Well, this scenery here is so spectacular. We felt like if we put a webcam up here, not only would the weather stations be able to take a look at what the weather's doing, but friends that come, folks that come to see the park could call their family and friends and say, hey, look where I am. So from this very spot, they can stand and call their friends and say, look where I am, and they can see Chimney Rock.
Okay. And is that a unique thing that another state park might not have? Do other state parks have that?
I would say probably not.
Before you answer, I'm not shooting it right now.
Okay.
That's really bizarre. It's hard to get a white balance up there. The color, the light is very weird, bluish color. Sorry, folks.
Must be my eyes.
All right. Okay. Okay. Continue. Very good.
Okay. And would is this something that
I think a
is fun?
webcam is unique to state parks. Other attractions might use a webcam, but I'm not so sure that a state park would use a webcam. But it really has been successful in that when the weather is especially beautiful, either with fall color or with spring or rainy, the weather channels will say, take a look at what the weather's doing at Chimney Rock.
And does that bring visitors here?
It does. People love to come and see. It's a great way to promote the park and show its scenic beauty all at once.
Okay, hang on just a second. Anything else?
Okay.
Yeah? Okay.
Cut.
That's good.
All the way around.
Come out, it goes out this way, and it cuts out that one, it goes out this way. So you have to go all the way around to the right. But the road that goes up the side over is not.
I did.
Someday probably will open, but it needs to open because it would open up a whole new. Well, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's okay to.
What is that huge house with the great red roof?
That's where the owner of Lake Lane lives. And after he bought he bought that house too.
Just FYI, we're gonna go check out the opera box really quick and see what that would
Oh,
look like.
I want to go take a look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take a look.
Come up the opera.
You too, thank you. Yeah, so they did this first.
That's what I call Siri. Don't wait for me. No, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. He was coming down. I was going up to the last job.
Guys, can you get out of the way?
Let's take pictures of us. Hey. It's creepy. We don't wanna.
Okay, this will work. This will work. Let's move forward.
It's rated R. Have you turned 17 recently?
That went too hard with.
What's it about? It's during the French and Indian War, and it's about two girls who are British, and they're trying to find their father, who's General Arnold. He's here with the army, and they end up traveling with a major from the British Army, and then two Indians, and they're adopted.
Right.
So, yeah.
Get him.
What are you doing there?
All right.
We'll see y'all later.
Let's go home. If you are.
Okay.
Okay, look, I've rolled it anytime.
Okay. Well, could you first just briefly tell me a little bit about what your role entails at the town of Lake Lure?
I'm the Environmental Management Officer. I work primarily in the Lake Operations Department, and I do sediment erosion control, floodplain management, tree protection, and anything else that has to do with the environment as far as the town and the lake are concerned, and the lake ecosystem.
And so how is that different from your role at Chimney Rock?
Well, it's kind of hard to describe. It's more of a regulatory role that I take now. I manage two state delegated local programs, that being the sediment erosion control program and the floodplain management program, and both of those fall under North Carolina general statutes, and which allows us to have those delegated programs. And so it's more of a regulatory role from that standpoint. As far as work on the lake, I do a lot that focuses on the ecology of the lake and the natural environment. So in some ways that's similar to what I did when I worked for the park as the naturalist, but not quite the same thing.
Great. So can you tell just more broadly in terms of the gorge in this area, like environmentally, what makes this area unique?
Hickory Nut Gorge is unique first and foremost because of its location. It sits right on the edge of the mountains in the Piedmont along the Blue Ridge Escarpment, and because of that location you get this nice mixture of plant and animal species that occur in both places. And then you get some things that are just unique to the Hickory Nut Gorge and other similar gorges along the escarpment. So and part of that's attributed to aspect, the direction that the gorge faces, which provides north and south facing slopes. You also have a very specific geology, which of course affects the soil types here, which allows certain plants to grow and other plants to not do quite as well. So there's a lot of factors that make Hickory Nut Gorge special. And I think if you were to look at the geology, that would probably be the largest factor, particularly with the species that grow here as it relates to their significance.
Great. Can you give me a specific example of something that grows here because of the environment of the gorge?
White iris head is a good example. That's a federally endangered species, and Hickory Nut Gorge probably has one of the largest populations of that particular plant. And the only other locations that it's found are along the escarpment. There's some over in the South Mountains, part of Rutherford County. There's some over in Polk County, also in places right along the escarpment, and also in Greenville, South Carolina, just right close to the state line. There's some populations, and so you have this nice little belt of amphibolite, which is the rock type that we see here on the top portions of the mountains, and that the calcium that's in that amphibolite tends to get transported into the soil and allows that plant to grow. So that's one of those relationships where you have geology in play. So.
Great. Well, and as you know, when we've talked before, we're kind of talking about tourism and the impact it could possibly have on the environment, especially in terms of these unique species and things. Like, how available is that kind of stuff to visitors?
Well, I would say that the vast majority of the rare plant species that we have here in the gorge are not available to the public, and it's for not necessarily because there's not access, but it's because they are so subtle in their appearance that most people would just walk past them and never even realize, what they were seeing or what was even there. So that's a good thing in terms of survivability for those species. It's not like somebody's going through and picking the plants, as they come across them and those kinds of things. And in fact, at the time that I worked for the park, we had two trails that went to the top of Hickory Nut Falls, the Skyline and Cliff Trail, and in both cases there were significantly rare species all along both of those trails, and most people never even realized what they were walking past. And it made for a wonderful ability to manage those species, because we were able to do regular monitoring and keep an eye on those and see what kind of impacts there were. And one of the federally endangered species that occurs in the park, the only place in the entire Hickory Nut Gorge that is found is along the Skyline Cliff Trail. And we were actually able to do monitoring on that species and make reports to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And so that was a good thing to have that ready access to that particular species.
Great. Well, and you mentioned some trails specifically. What kind of environmental factors are taken into account when you want to rehabilitate a trail or maybe build a new trail?
Well, the good thing for
1 second, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh.
Are these buses
Oh, they're coming in here.
stopping
I thought-
and
Saw that.
actually took pictures of a couple of those.
Photos could see another
yeah.
venue.
Sorry, but
Oh, no, you're fine. So yeah, again, what kind of environmental factors are taken into account?
That's kind of a hard question to answer because when I first came here in '92 and started working for the park, all the trails, with the exception of what's now the Great Woodland Adventure and the Four Seasons Trail, were already in place. So I think it was more of an aspect of managing what was there. And in that case, the naturalists before me, they worked very hard to make sure that, number one, the trail surface wasn't eroding, and in those cases would try to come up with solutions. And in many cases, it was to construct boardwalks. So if you were to walk out on those trails now, you would see the remnants of those boardwalks that were constructed during the 90s. And that was primarily to protect the trail surface and protect the edges where some of the rare plant species were growing. Also, where we would have cut-off areas where people would try to walk and like say to cut across a switchback. We would work to try to cut off those access points and make it so that people couldn't go through those areas. And we do that primarily by moving big logs or pieces of wood in the way, and in some cases we even just built staircases just straight up the hill, which cut across the switchbacks to give people the route that they wanted to go anyway. So those are some examples of some things that we did. But mostly we would just take into consideration what the state of the trail was, what our different solutions might be as far as whether it be natural rehabilitation or natural construction methods, such as using available rock material and stack it on top of each other to create stairs, or to use wood such as black locust to create water bars and step treads, just to make the trail as natural as possible, as inexpensive as possible as far as construction went, and still maintain our goal of protecting the resource.
Great. Or do we need to pause? Okay.
You are different. A little bit. Go ahead, you're fine.
Okay.
This won't be on the air.
So, I'm losing my train of thought. You mentioned erosion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think in general, people kind of understand that that's not something that we want to see, but can you explain more specifically what kind of impact erosion might have on its environment?
Sure, and I would say we would probably want to differentiate the types of erosion that we're talking about, because if you look at the formative processes that have basically formed Hickory Nut Gorge and Chimney Rock, those are all processes of erosion. And without that natural process, you wouldn't have some of the natural features that you have. What we're talking about is accelerated erosion that usually occurs through development of property, through removal of trees, or just cutting a path through an area that may have been undisturbed. And when you do that, then you're setting up a situation for having some accelerated erosion, which is not through natural processes. So in considering that, you look at different things as far as where's water going to go, where is it naturally moving, and is there a way that you can control the water so that you're not damaging the trail surface when you do that, or having anything run off the site that's going to create a sedimentation issue downstream that may end up impacting the river or lake lure, something like that. So it's very important to be mindful of that, and it's also important to maintain the design and take that into account whenever designing a trail, to make sure that you're following the contour as closely as possible. You're not cutting into a drainage area or running directly along the fall line where you're going to increase that erosion potential.
Great. Well, and you mentioned how some areas in the park are still undisturbed a little
Mhm.
bit. I mean, what do you think, would those remain in that condition, or what do you think would justify maybe disturbing it or opening it up to the public?
I would hope that they would remain undisturbed. One of the things that that actually started when I was here and was a park naturalist, we did something called the off the beaten path, and to my knowledge, they still do off the beaten path hikes. But that was kind of a something we thought would be really exciting for people to get an opportunity to see the park in a different way, away from the typical trails that would take people to the waterfall and so forth, and give people just some extra exposure to the mountain. Fortunately, it was kind of easy to do because most of the places that we took folks were on trails. That were really old. They may have been roads and so forth. So they were off the beaten path as far as where normal visitors went, but there was actually a path there. So it kind of made that simple. But people still got to see things in a different light in different parts of the mountain that they wouldn't have normally seen. Now, I think one of the things that you risk when you start taking visitors into some of these places, number one, you got a safety issue, partly because the mountain can be very unforgiving. There's a lot of rock, a lot of steep places, and it's not what you would call a good place for your just average Joe hiker that might come to visit the attraction portion of the state park. Also, in some of those areas, you've got areas that don't need to be trampled because of the significance of the natural community. And so it's important to understand where those areas are and how best to protect them. And state parks, I believe, has done and will do a good job as far as making sure that they're not putting the natural resources in danger as they begin to develop the park through their comprehensive master plan. And at least that's my hope. I hope that they consider the importance of some of these natural communities and limit access. For me, I would like to see, just from a personal standpoint, I'd like to see the Skyline and Cliff Trail open back up, because to me that's the signature piece of Hickory Nut Gorge. If you look at both of those trails and then look at the entire gorge, that's the representative. Because all the natural communities that are found in Hickory Nut Gorge are represented along that trail. So to me, it's a very important piece, and it's one of the things, if we want people to see Hickory Nut Gorge, they need to see the Skyline Cliff Trail.
Now, we had mentioned erosion a bit before, and as talking with people throughout the park, there's been, speak of the invasives and things like that. What do you think is maybe the greatest threat to the environment of the park right now?
Invasive species would definitely be top of my list as far as threats to the park. We have numerous species that are threatening the natural resources all throughout Hickory Nut Gorge. When I worked here, we intensively worked to get rid of kudzu, and also Princess Tree and Tree of Heaven. Those three species we primarily focused on, but mainly kudzu, because it covers so much area and potentially impacts several areas where there are rare and endangered species, the white irisette being one of them. So we tried to focus primarily on kudzu, and we're very successful beating it back and keeping it at bay and keeping it out of the natural areas as much as possible, with the understanding that there would be some areas that we wouldn't be able to completely eradicate it, and we just focus more on management. But if you look at the entire Hickory Nut Gorge and the efforts that are being made, we're trying to get some of these rare, or not rare, but these exotic invasive species under control, because they do have so much potential to damage the natural resources. A perfect example of that is the hemlock woolly adelgid, which is an insect pest that was introduced and has come in and basically wiped out the hemlocks in the Hickory Nut Gorge. If you look in some of these areas of the gorge where there used to be hemlocks, now there are only skeletons. And so that's kind of a scary thing when you think about the impact that hemlocks have in the ecosystem and how important they are, and then to have that all of a sudden just within a period of about 5 to 10 years totally wiped out. That's a scary thing, and even though it's not a plant, it's an animal species as far as the adelgid is concerned, it's still an exotic invasive, and so they all have to be treated equally in terms of the fact that we don't want them here because of the damage that they do to the ecological community.
Well, in terms of the actions the park has taken to kind of combat these invasives and your work at the town, is there any collaborative efforts, or how does...
Yes, actually, there's a group currently that just recently formed called the Weed Action Coalition of Hickernut Gorge, and their primary focus is on exotic invasive species, and their focus is to work with property owners, private individuals, to get rid of exotic invasives on their properties, as well as to work with the different conservancies that are at work here in the gorge and state parks, so that we can try to get a handle on some of these invasive species and eradicate where possible and restore the native landscape where possible. So that's definitely a community effort with multiple partners, and we're hoping that over the next few years we're going to see some major successes out of that group.
So in terms of bringing people or visitors to places like this where you may want to mitigate some of the potential impact, if you could name one or two things, I mean, what do you think is the greatest challenge when you're trying to bring people to a place you're also trying to conserve?
Well, I think it's traffic management is one of the big keys, and that's one of the things I think Chimney Rock Park, as far as the attraction portion, has done well over the years. I know since I started in 92, through the 90s, we had a lot of traffic here, and mainly due to the Last of the Mohicans film, which took people primarily out on the areas where that film was shot. And so as a result, we had huge amounts of traffic here, and when you have, for instance, a 3,000 person day on Labor Day, you go, what are you going to do with them all? Where are you going to put them? And so it does become a very difficult thing to manage. And so I think one of the ways that you can do that is potentially with admission cost, although people a lot of times don't like that, but it's a good tool for limiting the amount of traffic. It doesn't always work because some people realize, well, I'm going to get a lot of bang for my buck and are willing to pay it. But I think also other offerings I think that you can do to kind of offset that and have various things going on so that you can spread people out a little bit. To me, that's key. And that's one of the reasons that we constructed the Four Seasons Trail while I was here, because we saw that as an opportunity of having a traffic jam up at the top parking lot with this flood of people that were riding shuttle buses and things like that from here in the meadows up the mountain, having a way that people could walk up rather than having to drive up and that kind of thing. It spread people out across the mountain. And when we constructed that trail, we wanted to do it in such a way where we weren't going to be destroying the ecosystem as a result. And of course, if I were to go out there and look at that trail today, I would see some places where we made mistakes as far as the actual construction, because that was the first trail that was constructed since the main three had been built way back a long time ago. And so we definitely learned some things as far as the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. But it did accomplish the goal of spreading people out on the mountain and taking some of the heat off the main areas where the big resources are.
Do you have like a specific example of something that you think was learned from the building of that trail that you might?
Well, we learned you don't run trails down ravines. That's a bad idea. And there's one place on that trail where there's a pretty steep section, and you know, if we had it to do over again, we would have definitely done it a little different. And I think we actually had it in our plan to do it a little bit different later on, but it just never did come to be. But it's just one of those things you kind of live and learn sometimes, and hindsight's 20/20. And when I go back out there, that's probably the one part of that trail where I go, man, I wish we hadn't have done this this way. We would have definitely done something a little different.
Well, I'm gonna let some of people ask questions if they have a few.
Is this good? Am I good?
Yeah.
All right. So what is it that you did wrong?
Well, I won't say that we did it wrong, but we did it in a way that we didn't put a lot of thought into it.
What was it?
We put in a trail with locust log steps leading straight up a ravine. And the bad part about that is we put it where water typically runs. And when you open that up and all of a sudden you've exposed the soil to where there's normally leaf cover and duff and things like that, so that there's not an erosion situation. Once that's opened up and you have a trail going through an area like that, then now you suddenly have a problem. And that's one of the things that we've seen out there has been accelerated erosion due to where that trail was routed.
And what's the problem with erosion, with accelerated erosion?
You get the main problem is sedimentation. So as water runs over that soil, it picks up the soil particles and transports it. And because water always flows downhill, it's going to flow into a creek or a larger stream such as the river, and then eventually into the lake. And of course, if the lake wasn't there, it just keep on going downstream and impact other areas downriver. But it's sedimentation, as far as the Broad River is concerned, is a major environmental concern because of the damage it does to the aquatic ecosystem. It's not good for trout. It's not good for a lot of the freshwater invertebrates that are found in the river. And so anytime that you have a situation where you have sediment running off of a site, you've got potential problems.
And you were talking earlier about managing people. Mm-hmm. What impact does a lot of people have at the park?
Well, a lot of things actually. One is the impact of trail surface. The more people that you have walking in an area, you create some intense pressure. People tend to walk off trail more just because they want to avoid the crowds.
What is the problem with walking off trail?
Potential of trampling through rare communities, damaging rare species, and particularly the white iriseid. That's the one that comes to mind the most because it does tend to be kind of scattered across the mountain, and someone may trample the species. And although some disturbance is good for that plant, and regular foot traffic is not because it would damage the roots and things like that, and that's a pretty key thing. And the more traffic that you have through areas, I mean, it's like if you went to a campground and you see where people have walked. A lot of times it's just very random, but if you put people in areas where it makes sense and try to get them to stay there, you have less impact. And so that's kind of the key to that.
Okay, great.
Come on in.
Okay.
You jump in the saddle.
All right. You're doing great.
Thank you.
You're doing really great. I think you're
Still don't need a water?
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. Ready? Okay. So I was just wondering, when you first heard that the state was going to buy the property, what were some of your worries or apprehensions?
Well, actually, I was probably more excited that the state was buying it than a developer buying it, because the state parks typically have a good track record as far as whenever they purchase property, that they make sure that it gets protected. So that alleviated a lot of concerns that I had, and a lot of concerns that other people in the community had, that something bad would happen to the park. And when you work at a place for the time that I worked there, I worked here for 11 years, and during that time you really make a connection with the place. And I tell people a lot of times that when I come up here, the mountain still speaks to me. As weird as that may sound, but you know, it's kind of a surreal experience, you know, when you come in here and you see the things that you've always seen, but you experience it a little bit different because you don't work here. But I think my biggest apprehension with state parks was, would they manage it as well as we managed it, at least in my opinion, back when I was here, because resource management was a very important concern that we had, and we wanted to make sure that we were protecting the resources so that future generations could enjoy them and that they would always be here. There's just always a lot of unknowns anytime property such as this makes a change to someone else, and you don't know who the people are that's going to be taking care of it, and you don't know what their priorities are and where money's going to be spent and that kind of thing. And a state park's generally pretty big. I mean, this park, it's well over what the original Chimney Rock Park was, which was only a little over 1,000 acres, and I think the state park's up around 3,000 or so. So that's a lot more land than to have to take care of. And so the big concern for me is that, to me, the heart and soul of Chimney Rock State Park is always going to be well taken care of. So.
And just to kind of follow up when we're there, would you mind just expanding on that for a little, for a bit? Just say I want to tell you what to say, but just I'm wondering about the problem. If you could describe the problem and why it might be a problem.
Well, Rumbling Bald has always been a high traffic area, even before state parks bought it. Particularly the south-facing side, which is where the primary climbing areas are. And I wouldn't say trampling is necessarily a problem there, partly because it's always had high usage, and most of the climbers are pretty conscientious about that area, and always have been. But where some of the problems came were on some of the other areas that the Nature Conservancy previously owned, which had typically been isolated to climbing, but for some reason, I guess, after the word got out that State Parks was buying it, it suddenly became, it's like, okay, well, we've got access now, and so they started to basically come into areas that had not been previously used for climbing, and it upset quite a few people because there were a lot of things that were trampled, and there had been no inventory work done in those areas, so we had no idea as far as what resources were there, if there was anything rare and endangered that had been trampled or removed. And so I know the Nature Conservancy was not happy about that little incident, and State Parks wasn't either, and they worked to rectify that situation and had some conversations, and so I don't think it's going to be a problem anymore. And there's, it's one of those things where you have to strike a good balance, because it is state property. I mean, it's the public's property. I mean, the taxpayers own the park, and they want to be able to use it in the way that they think is going to be best, and so the state has to balance that need with also the need of protecting the resources. And I think as long as you can strike that balance and make everybody happy, then it's a good thing. But it's like everything in life, you got to have some balance. So I think State Parks is going to do a good job with balancing the needs of the public with the needs of the environment.
Okay.
Great.
Just specifically, what were some of the things that the state did once they acquired Rumbling Bald to kind of alleviate the trampling problem?
Well, one of the things that they did, which was very important and was something that I was very excited about as the environmental management officer of the town, was they went in and rehabilitated the main trail leading to the climbing area. For years, that trail had been significantly eroded. It was just an old logging road that just through years and years of use had been trampled to death. And I mean, there were places in the trail that you could stand in the bottom of the trail, and the side slopes would be over your head, and you'd be just like walking through a little gully. And so they went in with some help from the Friends of State Parks and the Carolina Climbers Coalition, and they've rehabilitated a lot of those old exposed areas, put in new trail, which is built properly with regard to water runoff and following contour and that kind of thing. Creates a little bit longer trail, but the end result is something that's not going to cause a severe erosion issue. It's not going to impact the streams. It's not going to impact the natural resources around. And so it's a good thing. It's a really good trade-off, and I think State Parks did a fantastic job whenever they did that.
Cool. Is there anything we forgot to ask that you want to speak about?
I don't think so.
All right, you're done.
Pretty complete. Thank you so much. That was
All right.
great.
That's fine. Okay, I'm gonna shoot some footage. Here we go. If you want to ask him something.
Yeah. What did you find there?
Okay, so this is white iris set, which is one of the 2 federally endangered species found in Hickory Nut Gorge. And it likes these little areas like this, this is a somewhat disturbed area, partly from human activity, from where the trail was cut in, but also at one time this was a cut forest. This was all the trees and everything would have been removed, and so the land would have been disturbed, and that's the kind of areas that this plant really likes. Of course, this is past its prime. This will be declining now that fall is here, but in the late spring, early summer, this plant...
And just looking around and...
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to direct you. Or,
Oh, that's
you were looking for stuff.
So you ready me to start again?
Yeah, from the top, same thing.
Okay. So this is white iris set. This is one of the plants that, one of the federally endangered species found in Hickory Nut Gorge. It likes these disturbed areas, kind of like where we're at right now. All of this area at one time was logged, and so that's a type of disturbance. And this plant really thrives in this particular location. And there's generally amphibolite present, as we had discussed, which is the geological formation and component that makes white iris set perform well where it does. But this particular plant, it blooms in the spring, or late spring, early summer, and it has these little tiny white 6-petaled flowers. And if you're just walking along, you would never even know it's there. In fact, most people, when they walk if you were just walking along and you saw this plant, you would think that looks like just some grass. But if you look at it more closely, you'll see that it has this unique branching, what we call dichotomous branching, which is unique to this plant. And even further, if you look at it even a little closer than that, if you notice at the base, it looks very iris-like as far as the way the leaf arrangement is. So, but we call it white iris set, which is little iris. But it's a very unique plant, and it's awesome when you find it, and it's one of those things, I guess, over many years of looking for it, it's one of those things that just pops out whenever I'm walking along through the forest, and particularly in an area where I know it's likely to be found. And we've looked for it all over Hickory Nut Gorge. And so we've pretty well established, where it occurs and where it doesn't. In areas where we know that there's not a high influence of amphibolite, then we're probably not going to find this plant. So it's always exciting to see it. And there's several of them scattered around in this little woodland area here.
How rare is it in the world?
It's only found in just a few locations in North and South Carolina, and those are primarily along the Blue Ridge Escarpment. So you're not going to find this anywhere else in the world. It's one of those that they call a globally endangered species because of its specific location. So it's one of those things we're just really blessed in Huguenot Gorge to have it growing here.
It's iris set.
Iris set.
Related to the iris?
Well, it is. It's in the.
So what if we have Clint?
Okay, anytime. Looking good, cut.
Excited because this is that screw up area that I was talking about earlier.
Right.
And the state has gone in and they have repaired some of the damage that occurred there. And you've got this nice little staircase going up through there, which had they not done this, this would have been tragic because of our screw up whenever we first built the trail. But it's not ideal. It's not ideal.
And we're done.
Did you see anything that popped out at you? I'm just curious. When you were looking just now?
There was a nice little patch of what some people call strawberry bush or hearts of bust. So it's kind of that state partnership, but occasionally they will call me and ask me to come out on something, and I generally will figure out some way of doing that, try to make myself available to come out. But State Parks doesn't know about this place. I mean, it's hard to explore as much land as they have and know where everything is. In the 11 years that I worked here, I didn't get to see everything just in the 1,000-acre part that was privately owned at that time. So there's a lot you never see. I stopped working here in 2003. Beds and things, these are all new. These have all been put in just in recent years. But had we known or suspected, which I think initially we did know and suspect, but we just didn't have the time to talk about, which was we got this new trail that gets you from point A to point B, and so in order for them to talk about it, we had to get it done. And basically,
So okay, Courtney, you're gonna do, all right, I'm ready.
So yeah, can you just talk, sort of start over a little bit about how there's sort of a need to, bring visitors in, and maybe this is one of the approaches.
right. Okay, so when we're now on the Four Seasons Trail, and at the time that this trail was constructed, the park was looking for a way of getting visitors from the meadows up to the top without having to drive their vehicle. And so as we began talking about this, it was kind of a formative thing, and one day I came out here and just started hiking, followed where the deer had traveled and just along a game path, and picked out a potential route and saw some neat stuff. I'm like, this is going to be really good. And so, of course, I reported my findings back to our management team, and then all of a sudden this ball started rolling, more like a snowball, and just got bigger and bigger, and it was like all of a sudden there was a huge need to get this thing constructed so that there was something that could be talked about. That, hey, this is a new thing. This is something that we're offering visitors, and we want this to be great. And so that kind of moved our crew into a mode of, well, let's dig it and put it in. And we didn't really have the opportunity to really think it through and to really put the trail in the way that it needed to be put in. The end result, the finished product that you see today, is really nice. It's really good, and it fixes a lot of the things that we messed up in that process. Is it still the most ideal way of running the trail? Probably not, but it's just mainly fixing a problem that we created as a result of really moving too quickly and not properly planning the trail design and making sure that it was done in a sustainable way. Because it's any kind of trail construction has to be sustainable, and were this not repaired and fixed in the way that it is now, it would be a bad thing, and we'd have severe erosion problems, and that was what was occurring before it was fixed. And you know, but it's one of those things. If I had it to do over again, we'd have done it a little different.
Well, and even, I don't know if you can speak to the, sorry, I have one more question.
Okay.
If you could speak to the other trails or not, but do you think that is sort of the mindset in general? Maybe when it was a private attraction, was kind of to get things...
Well, I don't know, because this was the only trail that was built while I was here. All the others were already in place. And so for those trails, it was more of an issue of how do we keep them in a good state of repair. And that was always a challenge because, you know, in a natural environment things change. And some of those trails, like for instance the trail that leads to the bottom of the waterfall, that was an old Jeep road. And for years it was not properly maintained. It had bad washouts and things like that. And during the time that I was here, we actually had a couple of severe landslides that nearly took that trail out of commission. And part of that was in part to the fact that the way it was constructed. They constructed that trail in a way that we don't typically construct trails now. We look at things in more sustainable ways, and back then it was just a means to an end. Let's get from point A to point B. And that tends to, if you go with that mindset, a lot of times not thinking about what the consequences might be down the road, then you can see where you might have some issues that'll arise later on. And so one of the things that when I was here, we tried to think about sustainability and what would work and what wouldn't, and what can we do to improve this particular area versus not do, you know, what's going to work, what's not going to work, and those kinds of things, because you want to make sure that it's going to last and that it's not going to damage the resources.
One thing, can you where would it go?
If I were constructing this trail now, first and foremost, I would not run it up the ravine. That's just not the right location for the trail, because it impedes normal water runoff. I mean, ravines is where water collects. So basically, when this trail was built, it removed all of the leaf litter, all of the collection system for this ravine, which would have filtered out sediment and those kinds of things before it entered the stream down here. And so it basically took away that natural function. The ideal thing would have been to taken the trail and worked our way along a contour. Probably this way would have probably made the most sense in order to stay in line with the trail down there, but work it around the contour, bringing it out somewhere around the other side of the ridge. Because where it is now, while it's a quick way up, it's not a sustainable route. And the overall product would have been better and probably created less impact over the long term. But again, what's here now will work. It's at least now in a sustainable situation, but not as sustainable as what could have been.
Great, thank you.
One more. Kind of drove some of the decision making in the park in your time here?
Whew, that's a tricky question. And a lot of the market was driven by Last of the Mohicans, first and foremost, especially in the mid to late 90s. there was a lot of folks that came specifically to see the areas where The Last of the Mohicans was filmed. And so it really made it easy for marketing the park, because you had something to talk about that had quite a bit of luster and excitement. And so the early 90s and mid 90s were a fairly easy time in terms of marketing. But as that luster starts to wear off, then it becomes more of a challenge, and you don't want to be gimmicky. And that's one of the things that I think the management had to closely look at is, how do we advertise ourselves and market ourselves without being too gimmicky and touristy? Because it's one of those things that we've always kind of run the gauntlet in terms of being too much of a tourist trap. And for a long time, Chimney Rock Park was seen as a tourist trap. And so we didn't want to necessarily reflect that kind of image. And so it's trying to find a way to promote the natural environment and do it without, seeming too cheesy or whatever. And so, having things like that focused on the natural environment, it gave our marketing folks something to talk about. Another example would be some of the educational things that we tried to do. Off the beaten path hikes were one example of something that gave people something to do, a kind of a bonus for coming. Of course, naturally they were paying for it, but it was just an added bonus to be able to see a part of the mountain that they wouldn't normally get to see, and to be able to go out with a knowledgeable person to explain some of the things that they were seeing, and get to have opportunities that just the average guest wouldn't see, like getting to round up rattlesnakes or something on top of the mountain, where we would occasionally find them, or to see one in its natural habitat after it had just eaten something. We had that happen on a particular off the beaten path, and guests left excited, and we were excited, and it was just one of those things that I really loved doing. We always had a good time, and we'd eat lunch, and it's an opportunity to really get to know who your customer was, and that was one of the great things that I enjoyed doing, and I think it was a successful marketing strategy.
Down from the box above, you probably sit there. It's not one big rock. You're like rocks on top of rocks.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Well, and then you go up and look at the Devil's Lake.
You see
gonna be
how
right now.
shaped, see how that thing is shaped. I mean, that's all wind and water that's carved that thing out.
They're gonna be done
Blowing particles
sit
in
around
the air that we can't see, trimming it up and carving.
So was the erosion, was there glacial erosion here in the,
Yeah, it's all the result of wind and water.
really, no glaciers?
Glacier didn't come this far. It's part of that. Part of it being on that transition zone between the mountains and Piedmont. The that kind of stuff. That's going over my head geologically speaking. I don't know. My mind stuff like that. But that's supposedly when all everything started happening at the bottom.
Rwanda, the name of the continent when North America and parts of Africa were.
Maybe Bob's, but Griffith's a pretty big bird, right? He's gonna need a lot to fill him up. What do you think? What kind of other birds are out at night? What? Well, okay, now bats are out at night and gremlins would eat bats, but bats are actually mammals, right? Just pretend that he's not in the middle of the filming right now. Go ahead.
One question I always wonder about owls. Whenever I'm space, I see these little black things that go like this.
Awesome. Okay, very good observation. So these guys, how many eyelids do we have? Who knows? Fly around and look for their food they're eating. And back to what Gremlin was eating, we were just talking about a second ago, not only those other birds and bats, but he's eating stuff that runs around on the ground. Did you guys talk about a certain animal in the adaptation program that has a certain ability to spray a musk? Has a white stripe. What am I thinking about? Okay. A skunk. Great horned owls love to eat skunks. There's a couple different theories as to how that works. Number one is these guys are silent predators. So he's got these fringed, very soft looking feathers here. He even has feathers down here on his feet. Look at Ghost. She has naked feet. See, no feathers on her feet there. She's still showing you guys her underarms. And Gremlin has these feathered feet. He is designed blends in. That's why when we're holding him, a lot of times we hold him close to our bodies. If we're a tree and he's close to me, typically he's a little bit, all right, so come around, let you guys get an up close peek at Gremlin here. Somebody was asking about his head. Who knows how many degrees are in a circle? How many degrees in a circle? Yes, ma'am. 360. Awesome. Gremlin can turn his head 270. Don't worry, he's not going to eat you. So he goes forward, all the way back over one shoulder, back forward, and all the way back that way. That's so he can find his prey. You guys put your fingers in front of your faces real quick. Now you have to listen closely. This is a little tricky. I want you to move your finger to the sense.
They look like plastic eyes.
They do look a little bit fake. Go ahead.
What's the strongest body part on an owl?
That's a great question. He said, what is the strongest body part the gremlin has, or on an owl? What do y'all think? Those feet. Those feet are how he kills his prey. That's what he's using to hunt with. So they're very strong, very powerful, and they're definitely the strongest part of his body. Go ahead.
Between them two, who's the strongest?
You know, people ask us who would win in a fight between these two a lot. And here's my answer. She is probably a little bit smarter, and Gremlin's probably a little bit stronger. So, I don't know. Gremlin has more power than she has. But these guys don't fight in the wild. Tip-tail pair comes back. They're looking for their nest, and who's in their nest but the great horn. So there might be a little bit of an argument there. But otherwise, they don't eat each other. They don't hunt each other. So there typically is not going to be a great horned red-tail battle. Sometimes these guys that have, it's underneath their tail. Gremlin's a boy, so he doesn't lay eggs. But if Ghost was to lay eggs, just like you know, that's a good point. People ask about that a lot. See, right now Gremlin is panting. He's a little bit nervous. And that's probably for several different reasons. But these guys pant. They don't sweat. If they were to sweat like we sweat, their feathers would be soaking wet and they couldn't get off the ground, right? So when he's panting, people see his little tongue. Their tongues are very short. Kind of funny. People are often surprised to see how little that tongue is. Okay?
How does he stay awake during the day and not at night?
That's a great question. If Gremlin wasn't teaching programs right now, he would be snoozing. Gremlin has been in captivity about 3 years. He was also hit by a car hunting on the highway. It's an awesome place down here. worked on him for 2 years. He has some surgeries, but they kept putting him in a flight cage to make sure that he was going to be able to hunt. And they put live prey in there, and he couldn't catch anything. It was his wing set just a little bit funny, and then when he flaps, he makes a bunch of noise. These guys depend on being silent. So if he can't catch it in a big cage, do you think he's going to be able to catch food in the wild? No. So Gremlin was at least a year old when he was hit. It wasn't a baby, and then he was in rehab for 2 years, and now we've had him. Go ahead.
One question about the owl's feathers. So if like a little.
Yep. Exactly. That's exactly how you would do it. Yes, ma'am.
How long is usually their naps?
You know, these guys, I don't know. Gremlin, when he's sleeping, you know, if we go in and check on him, he wakes up and stuff. So, but they, you know, gray horns usually roost or snooze during the day, most day long. And then they'll start hunting when it becomes dark outside. Different times of year, different nocturnal animals have a little bit different pattern too, depending on if they're breeding or not. That's a good question. Okay.
How are they moving their head up like that?
Okay, they have set helps them turn their heads 270 degrees like that. That's a great question. All right, so she asked, do they bite? And this is what we tell people all the time in our animal programs. Anything with a mouth can bite you. Dogs bite, kids bite, snakes bite, right? If you pick up a snake, is it going to bite you?
Yes.
Probably. If you pick up a raccoon, is it going to bite you?
Yes.
That's why we observe animals with our eyes, not our hands, right? Seed-eating bird, a bird that crunches up seeds, their beaks are like this, they're more able to bite. Sometimes when these guys have to have their nails trimmed or their beaks filed and they're on a table, they try to nip some, but biting is not their main defense. So that's a great question. Yeah. You know, you guys, who has a dog at home? All right, you guys see your dog pant? It's almost like their whole body moves, you know, when they're panting. Gremlin, it's the same thing. He's panting and you're seeing it in his throat right there. Yes, sir.
Why is
Well, you know, that's a great question. So these are, you know, like I was saying, are really a lot about camouflage. When he's on alert, he'll stand up as tall as he can, put his ear tufts up. He wants to look like the biggest, toughest owl around. Right now, he's a little bit out of sorts, trying to figure out what's going on, so he's got his other shoulder. Go ahead. He's sticking out a little bit. Yeah, it's more about getting height.
Oh! That's not funny! Yes, it is! No, it's not funny. I like it like it now. What channel was she on? What channel? Let's go.
Just the bald. Okay. We're rolling.
All right. When we were talking on the phone, you told me that, you know, you've been here in this area for a long time, and you have a kind of a relationship to walking these trails and to Chimney Rock State Park. Can you talk about that?
Well, we're living close by in the neighborhood, just 20 minutes down the road. Yes, this has been one of my playgrounds. From the time I could drive a car in high school, we'd come up here on Sunday afternoons and climb these cliffs and scout around, and lots of other places around the gorge. So yeah, this has been one of my stomping grounds and playgrounds.
Can you remember like a particular memory from that?
Hard to come up with any particular one. I guess I've come close to falling a time or two. One in particular, a friend saved me. Up near Bat Cave, we were up above Bat Cave. We used to just go in the Bat Caves. It's protected now, owned by the Nature Conservancy. We used to be at liberty to go up there. There was no real security there, and if you go up to the cave, so we do that occasionally. There's some caves up here on these cliffs that we've explored. They're not very extensive. There's not much area to play around in those caves, but just lots of points of interest. The waterfalls. Chimney Rock Park used to close during the winter, and we would hike up to the base of the falls, especially after a real cold spell, just to see the ice. After an extended cold spell, it would look like a glacier forming at the bottom of Hickory Nut Falls. I guess that's been one of my favorite memories of seeing that and photographing it. Very few people have done that. Like I say, it used to be closed, so I'm sure we were trespassing back in those days. Real rugged climb up to it from the highway also.
Nice. I think I want to just do walk and talk from now on.
Okay.
If that's fine with
Oh, that's
you?
fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
I'll pull out some more on my shirt then.
I'll never see your backside.
Okay.
Anytime. Just march right past.
No, anytime?
Yeah. Cut! All right. Anytime. I'm rolling.
Okay, so come this way.
All right.
Will you tell me about a memory at Chimney Rock, the attraction part that you have?
Well, I guess I think of the times that I've been up when, like I say, in the winter when the park was closed. I used to see it under conditions that the tourists never saw, such as icicles, ice formations, ice falls, and the ice that would accumulate at the bottom of Hickory Nut Falls was very impressive. So, as far as the scenic pleasures, there were some great ones. Scrambling like I used to and still do occasionally through the bushes, bushwhacking, literally bushwhacking, crawling sometimes. That's very strenuous exercise. I still get out occasionally, but I'm getting a little old for some of that. I have taken some friends that will no longer go with me because of such trips. I know you're going to edit us this. But,
what have you seen?
Particularly, I guess, with the state buying it. Okay. Chimney Rock Park really has some unique features, some neat features that anyone would remember, especially kids. My favorite, I believe, is the Needle's Eye, which is a real narrow, dark crevice between the boulders, and I'm disappointed that that's no longer open, with the state taking it over. I think it's too bad. I wish there was some way that they could devise a safe enough steps. I have some ideas myself. The Needle's Eye is just one of the neatest features, because you really go up through a crevasse and it becomes sort of a cave, and it's a scary looking set of steps going through it. I still think there's some way that it could be constructed to be safe.
Is that the old set of steps that goes up the mountain?
Well, there have been steps in. Yeah, they're old. I love to see some of the really, really old remains, such as the old round locust posts that still survive. It's mostly been replaced with treated wood. And it scares me to walk up them because the flight's so long. But I think they could have breaks, gates. I think it could be made safe. I just think they're making it a little too sterile for my taste. All of the metal, galvanized metal structure. I know there's some great benefits to that. But I think it's still unfortunate in some ways.
I'm curious about, over the years, there have been a lot of events and things that the park did that they don't do now. Like, there's the hill climb and any kind of like the Last of the Mohicans and movie screenings. And I'm curious
Have
about
you ever
that.
heard of the hill fall? The hill climb, as you indicated, that was a sports car race that was done every spring, sponsored by the National Sports Car Club. That was a great event, great party event for a certain set.
You're backing up into the. Okay, maybe I'll do this. You can grab onto.
Should I give some history of the hill climb? Tell about.
Yeah, that'd be great. As you experienced it, maybe.
Oh yes, I used to go when I was 18, 19, 20. Back it was a big occasion for a party, but also I love sports cars, so it's a great occasion to see some exotic cars. I understand though it got to interfering too much with the regular tourist traffic, and people who would come from a long distance who were unaware of the interruption of the sports car race got to complaining about it, so they had to do away with it. But I did participate in what became known as the hill fall, an adult kind of soapbox gravity race. It was organized by some of the local fellas, and it grew over a period of a dozen years or so, and we had a great time, and I think it became actually a spectator event in itself. In fact, they used to have it on a separate weekend and advertise it. That was a lot of fun, even though some people thought it was too dangerous. So, they've done away with that. But that's the one thing I did participate in.
What about the ticket price? There was something you had to say about the ticket price to get into the park.
Well, I'm of course disappointed that even though the state owns it, I'm sure I won't be by myself wondering why we have to pay to get into the state park. But then I understand the arrangement and how the developed part of it's run by a private interest. But I imagine there'll be a lot of tourists that wonder about having to pay to get into a state park.
Okay. How do you think marketing has influenced the way the park is run?
I don't know that I'm very much of an authority to comment on that, because I haven't been around the park much lately. I've been so disappointed that some of the trails were closed. Particularly, I mentioned the Needle's Eye and the Skyline Trail, the one that goes across the top of the cliffs, which is by far the most scenic trail. I understand it's closed, and maybe closed permanently, with the expectation of some modification on it. So I've just not been visiting the park much. I used to have an annual pass almost every year, and I haven't had one for about 3 years now. So just haven't been around, so I can't comment much on what's going on now because I haven't been around it. But I hear indirectly about these trails being closed, so I'm very disappointed. So I'm afraid the state, to me, is making it a little too sterile, too safe. I almost laugh when I think of some of the situations, the conditions I've seen in our national parks out west. The Grand Canyon, for example. You can walk 5 miles from the top to the bottom. Almost every step of the way, it just takes one step to eternity off the side. Not the first guardrail anywhere. Same way in some of the others, like the arches. So I just think it's a shame. It's too bad we have to make it just too safe.
Great. Anything else you want to say?
Well, I've already expressed it, but my main complaint would be that we're having to make it, the state, I think, is going too far to make it safe for the most foolish tourist. The incident a few years ago, I think, created the concern was a young child that was not attended by his parents, 2-year-old kid, I think. Now, that could happen anywhere, I believe, even on city streets. I think there's been great overreaction to that incident.
What was it? The 2-year-old kid? What happened to the 2-year-old kid?
It fell off the top of the cliff, wandered away. I think he was with an older sibling, but the young 2-year-old was not with his parents and fell off from the top. I just think they overreacted. There's been another fatality or two. I just think there could be some measures taken so that the tens of thousands of tourists could enjoy this. I'm afraid just for a little safety, we've eliminated a lot of enjoyment from many, many thousands of tourists, especially North Carolina.
All right, thank you.
Here's an old trail, badly eroded, as you can see. As far as I remember, this has been here for decades. I think this was probably an old skidder trail that loggers used, and I bet it's 50 years old. But I bet when I first came up here, it was just a trace, just a foot deep maybe. And you see how it's eroded. And I hope one good thing that'll come, another good thing that'll come of the state taking control of this will be to make some erosion control measures. This needs to be straightened out. I'm sure that's not news to everyone, but I would like to see that corrected. I think that a good trail builder could easily tell you some ideas there, mainly control the water. I hope this is the worst one in this area, but there are others. These woods have been logged 2 or 3 times over the years, and there's skidder trails around. Fortunately, very few of them are this bad. Most of them are grown over in trees, but this is still used very frequently, as you see, by the hikers, rock climbers. So something will have to be done to detour the traffic around this area. Let me walk up it.
No need to.
No, you're good.
Okay.
Anything else?
Oh, I
asked about third thing. Events. I asked you about events, the hill climb and such.
Back to the marketing.
Yeah.
An idea I've tried to bounce off some of the person's concern with the development of Chimney Rock and even some of the commercial interest. I would think it would be in the commercial interest, the merchants that make their living off of the tourists, to make Chimney Rock Park as interesting and as attractive as they can. And I give that Needle's Eye as an example. Some people are not going to find it as interesting and might not come back if they think it's been just too sterilized and if they've detracted from that enjoyment. I would not even be opposed to them building a cantilevered overlook right on top of the fall. I bet I'm the first person to mention that idea. Even though I consider myself a naturalist, environmentalist, if it's going to be a state park and if the purpose is to attract people to a place that they can enjoy, I believe that would do a lot to make the park very interesting. It could be something on the manner of the big the Indians overlook out there in the Grand Canyon. People get a rush out of looking straight down. I think it could be built near the top of the falls without detracting too much from it. I just think it'd be one heck of a rush to get out and look straight down over that vertical cliff and right at the waterfall. So I believe the commercial interest in this area would go along with things like that to make the park more attractive, bring more people in.
Thanks. Okay.
I'll be laughed at for that one.
What is the state? So, what is the state of the local economy here right now?
The state of the local economy is terrible. Forest City, I've been told here in the last few days, is ranked about the 9th poorest town in the whole country, according to median income, household income. A very bad economy here. Of course, most of western North Carolina is in the same situation, but this county was very reliant on textiles during most of the 20th century, and just virtually all that's gone, so the economy's really bad. Tourist dollars would be most welcome these days.
And how essential is Chimney Rock to the tourist dollar here?
Oh, it's very important. I understand it's the number 2 attraction to tourists who come to Asheville, second to the Biltmore House. I think they say people will come to Asheville to go to the Biltmore House, and Chimney Rock's the second attraction they come to. If you'll come to Chimney Rock almost any day, you'll hear a lot of foreign languages spoken around the rock.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
They don't want to be interrupted. You got your own. It's just 9 months.
Pardon me? They'll come on down. They're fine. They're doing fine.
Now here you have to jump over the...
Almost burnt down.
You just want to see us fall. Hello.
So this is what it feels like, huh?
Oh, red light's on now. All right.
And you see the REC, signifying record. If you push it again, it stops.
I think a good storm is just going to come roaring down there anyway. That's what it looks like to me. That's what I'm thinking. It looks like. This looks like loggers left debris 80 years ago and walked away from it. But once you explained it,
But like that first one, I mean, I wouldn't want to climb that, but plenty of people still do.
Yeah, I mean, they'd really want to put almost like bars, check dams across every 10 yards. I'm a steward for the South Sea area, and when I'm walking and I see something like that, I just do the same thing, throw a bunch of logs, you know, any brush you have, just keep people out of it.
How does that work?
I'd also, when you feel something, bad for the mean, if you just popped in the bouldering when somebody makes kind of a reference.
Okay, rolling.
Uh-oh, we're crossing the Rio Grande here.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike, you know, we're doing just a couple pounds now. Hey, Mike, don't forget this.
Hey, where are you guys? Okay, well Dale's got the ladies loaded and he's wanting to leave. He said, yeah, he said, can you guys find, okay, well they're not wanting to stop, they're not wanting to stop at the other Apple House. They're wanting to head back to the house, so. Okay, love you. Well, no, I need to go. Love you. Okay. All right, bye.
Sorry, go. Not me to watch this.
And they said he said he would. So I don't know. I can't make it.
Go.
He's had plenty of time to.
You can go ahead.
You can go ahead. No problem. He's had time to. Let you not get used to it.
What you got over there?
Whoops, sorry.
I'm going to go ahead and shoot this now.
You had 2 green tickets today?
There's a little traffic jam forming right here.
Hello, Mike.
Oh.
Yeah, move over, huh?